Chapter 809. Although Namutiani's words were somewhat callous and heartless, it was the truth. Zhou Xuanji couldn't stay in the evil sky divine range forever. He had always wanted to leave, but he was just waiting for the right time. The current evil sky divine range was no longer of any help to him. If he continued to stay here, it might affect his cultivation. Zhou Xuanji muttered, "I will consider this." Namutian nodded and did not force him. Instead, he admired Zhou Xuanji's hesitation. It meant that this boy was loyal to his friends, and he would not suffer if he followed him in the future. You don't have to worry too much about the Darkness Sovereign. The Kunlun Origin Court isn't as weak as it looks on the surface. The Darkness Sovereign has been defeated in every battle, and this time will be no exception. Just cultivate in peace. With a flip of his right hand, a green brocade pouch appeared in his palm. There are primal Tao stones in here that are unique to our Tiani divine range. They are specially used for cultivation. You can use them first. Zhou Xuanji raised his hand and caught the green brocade bag. He nodded and said with a smile, "You have treated me with sincerity. If I can really become the sovereign, I will repay you with sincerity." Hearing this, Namutiani beamed. That was what he wanted to hear. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, the two parted ways. Namutiani carried the muddle-headed Wang Buao back. Zhou Xuanji returned to the evil sky divine range. Along the way, he had been considering whether he should leave the evil sky divine range. Recently, B Sovereign had indeed been mobilizing troops and seemed to be planning something big. The evil sky divine range had already suffered heavy losses. They didn't have peace of mind to develop, yet they wanted to start another war. He really couldn't see through what B Sovereign was thinking. When he returned to the Kunlun universe, he suddenly discovered that the number of wandering creatures had greatly decreased. Could it be that they're all prepared to stop fighting and deal with the darkness supremacy? He was deep in thought, but he didn't stop. He flew toward the evil sky divine range at full speed. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Zhou Fa. He sent a telepathic message to Zhou Xuanji. "Come here, I have something important to discuss with you. It's a huge matter that concerns our lives and the survival of the entire Kunlun Origin Court." Zhou Xuanji heard him and hesitated for a moment, but he still followed him to a deserted divine range at the side. During the several hundred years of the Dark Era, hundreds of divine ranges were slaughtered and turned into wastelands. After entering the divine vein, the two landed in a desolate forest. "What is it?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Zhou Fa's expression was ugly as he gritted his teeth and said, "I miscalculated." The biggest problem for the Kunlun Origin Court was the Origin Court War God. That guy is the biological son of Dark Sovereign. He was sent to the Kunlun Origin Court by Dark Sovereign in his early years, allowing him to become Origin Court War God step by step. Now, Origin Court War God is plotting to make Dark Sovereign make a comeback, and B Sovereign is likely to be part of the plan. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He was a little surprised. In his eyes, the Origin Court War God was upright and righteous. He was willing to die for the Kunlun Origin Court, but this guy was actually pretending? He inexplicably thought of the Origin Court War God in anti-Kunlun, who was ferocious and evil. Could that be the true face of the Origin Court War God? Then what? There are so many powerful people trying to stop Origin Court War God. What's the use of looking for me? Zhou Xuanji asked with a calm expression, as though he did not care about this at all. He was wondering if B Sovereign's recent actions were related to the Origin Court War God. Since the disappearance of the Origin Court War God, B Sovereign hadn't mentioned it. Previously, he thought B Sovereign was sad, so he didn't ask much. Of course it's related. The evil sky divine range is closely related to you. If the evil sky divine range betrays you, do you still want to become a sovereign? Dream on. At that time, you will encounter the crazy counterattack of the entire Kunlun Origin Court. And although I am your enemy, I don't want the Kunlun Origin Court to be united. If that happens, all my plans will be in vain. I only have hope if you are not destroyed, Zhou Fa said with a gloomy face. Zhou Fa said with a gloomy face. His tone was very unhappy. He hated the evil sky divine range and the origin court war god. He actually didn't take them into account. Zhou Xuanji curiously asked, "Why do you say that?" Zhou Fa seriously said, "As long as you are alive, you can turn the Kunlun origin court upside down. There will be no peace for a day." Zhou Xuanji was speechless. He suddenly wanted to hit someone. What is this? Think about it. Ever since you came to the Kunlun origin court, the Kunlun origin court has been going through a dark period. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Zhou Fa said seriously, as though Zhou Xuanji was an unlucky star. Zhou Xuanji angrily said, "Why isn't it because you are here?" Zhou Fa replied, "I am one of the reasons. You're the biggest reason." What could Zhou Xuanji say in the face of such nonsense? He could only chuckle. "Okay, you must hurry up and sever your relationship with the evil sky divine range. It's best to spread this matter and let the entire Kunlun origin court know about it," Zhou Fa said, waving his hand. After speaking, he turned around and was about to leave. He suddenly thought of something. He turned around and said in a meaningful tone, "I don't know what your relationship with Hongqian Sovereign is. She dared to hurt me. Tell her that I will pay her back tenfold for that slap." A black crack appeared in front of him, and he stepped into it. Zhou Xuanji turned around and left. After flying out of the divine range, he made a decision. Leave the evil sky divine range. Zhou Fa and Namatiani both advised him to leave the evil sky divine range. They shouldn't be in cahoots. Otherwise, the two wouldn't have come to him one after the other. Interesting, the Kunlun origin court really can't be seen with the naked eye, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. His eyes flickered as a weird smile appeared on his face. Such a situation didn't give him a headache. On the contrary, he found it interesting. After returning to the evil sky divine range and pure sword heaven, Zhou Xuanji gathered everyone together. Then, he used the suppressing the universe to isolate the mountain. He told everyone what he knew. Everyone was shocked. How can Origin Court War God be a traitor of the Kunlun Origin Court? Zhou Tanhua cried out in astonishment. He had worshipped Origin Court War God as his master since he was a child. But due to a series of strange circumstances, he had only met Origin Court War God once and had never learned any skills from him. Even so, Origin Court War God held an extraordinary weight in his heart. The others started discussing. No wonder the evil sky divine range has been so nervous recently. Who doesn't know the relationship between Beast Sovereign and Origin Court War God? Then leave quickly. You have already helped the evil sky divine range escape the danger of extinction. You have already repaid their kindness. You can't be dragged down by them again. Yeah, Dark Sovereign wants to target our court lord. This is too exaggerated. It seems that no one in the Kunlun Origin Court can be easily trusted. Zhou Xuanji didn't interrupt and let them discuss on their own. He looked at Chang Xiyin and asked, "What's your choice? Follow me or stay in the evil sky divine range?" After all, Chang Xiyin was born and raised in the evil sky divine range. She probably didn't want to leave. Zhou Xuanji had a good impression of her, so he didn't want to force her. "Of course, I will follow you forever. I have no parents since I was a child. Although I grew up in the evil sky divine range, I have always been trained as a tool," Chang Xiyin replied without hesitation. Chang Xiyin replied without hesitation, her eyes firm. Chapter 8:10. Chang Xiyin was willing to follow Zhou Xuanji, not to mention the others. Zhou Xuanji told them to disperse and pack their things. "Go ask those servants if they are willing to follow us. Don't force them to stay. When the time comes, all of you will enter the 24-rank deep Black Lotus. I will go find Beast Sovereign first," Zhou Xuanji instructed Jiang Shui and Chang Xiyin. After speaking, he turned around and left Pure Sword Heaven. Zhou Xiaoxian said excitedly, "I'm finally leaving. I'm tired of staying in the evil sky divine range." Ever since she came to the evil sky divine range, the Kunlun Origin Court was in turmoil. She spent most of her time in the evil sky divine range and rarely went out. Jiang Shui glared at her and said, "We haven't left yet. Don't talk nonsense." Zhou Xiaoxian quickly covered her mouth after hearing this, for fear that Beast Sovereign would hear her. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji came directly to the gate of the sovereign palace. He cupped his fists and said, "Sovereign, I have something to see you." Although he was no longer afraid of Be Sovereign, he still had to do the necessary etiquette. After all, Be Sovereign was his elder and had helped him before. "Come in." Be Sovereign's voice floated out from the palace. His tone was calm. The gate opened, and Zhou Xuanji followed in a flash. In addition to Be Sovereign, there were two black-robed old men standing in the palace. They were as thin as a stick and had a pair of fierce eyes. One had a head full of dry hair, and the other had a pair of horns. They didn't look like good people. As Zhou Xuanji appeared between them, they turned to look at him. "What's the matter?" Be Sovereign asked, sitting on the main seat. He was no longer as enthusiastic as he used to be. Zhou Xuanji didn't beat around the bush and directly said, "I'm leaving the evil sky divine range. I want to say goodbye to you." "What? You want to betray the evil sky divine range?" Before Beast Sovereign could speak, the two black-robed old men next to him angrily shouted. Zhou Xuanji ignored them. Staring at Be Sovereign, he said, "I want to cultivate in peace and also cultivate my disciples and grand-disciples. I will take them to explore the world." Beast Sovereign furrowed his brow and said, "If you stay, I will still protect you." As soon as he said this, he regretted it a little. If not for Zhou Xuanji's powerful return, he would still be locked up in the Origin Court. The evil sky divine range might have already been flattened. Right now, he had no right to say that he could protect Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji replied with a smile, "The young eagle will eventually soar. I'm not cutting off all ties with the evil sky divine range. I just want to establish my own sect. In the future, the evil sky divine range will still be on good terms with me. If the evil sky divine range is in trouble, I will not stand idly by." The two black-robed elders snorted coldly. Such beautiful words were clearly a lie. Be Sovereign fell into a dilemma. He wanted to make Zhou Xuanji stay, but he didn't know how. Stay for a while longer. After all, the evil sky divine range has spent so many resources and opportunities on you. Shouldn't you repay them? The withered old man said coldly. His killing intent filled the entire hall. He was threatening Zhou Xuanji. The horned elder laughed and said, "That's right. Little kid, you have to repay a debt of gratitude, understand?" They had long heard of Zhou Xuanji and knew his talent. How could they let him go? Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "I've made up my mind. Seniors, please don't stop me." If the evil sky divine range didn't let him go, then he could only force his way out. He hoped that Be Sovereign would give him a little face so that he wouldn't have risked his life to save Zhou Xuanji in vain. Forget it, let him go. Since ancient times, there have always been geniuses who establish their own sections. Maybe he will become the sovereign? Be Sovereign said, waving his hand. His tone was thought-provoking. Zhou Xuanji found that he had become very calm. He wasn't as sharp as before. It seemed that Origin Court War God had already looked for him. The two brothers had already colluded. Therefore, Zhou Xuanji was no longer an indispensable existence in the eyes of Be Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji bowed to Be Sovereign before turning around and preparing to leave. At this moment, the two black-robed elders suddenly attacked him. Their claws were like eagle claws as they tried to grab his shoulders. He directly used the inverse chaos divine ability, causing the two black-robed elders to instantly reverse their direction and pounce toward Be Sovereign. Be Sovereign quickly dodged. The three turned their heads to look at Zhou Xuanji in shock. This kid, Be Sovereign's eyes widened. Monstrous waves were raging in his heart. He knew that Zhou Xuanji had become very strong, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. Even he couldn't see the divine ability just now clearly. The two black-robed elders flew into a rage out of humiliation. They once again attacked Zhou Xuanji. This time, they were on high alert. They didn't want to be tricked again. But just as they were about to touch Zhou Xuanji, their direction was reversed again. They only felt a blur before their eyes as Zhou Xuanji disappeared. From a bystander's point of view, Be Sovereign felt his blood run cold. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and stepped out of the sovereign palace, flying toward pure sword heaven. "Don't even think about escaping. The withered old man and horned old man chased after him. They were filled with anger. How could they let Zhou Xuanji go? The corner of Zhou Xuanji's mouth rose. He immediately turned around and cast the fate manifestation technique. In an instant, a dark cloud shrouded the heads of the two black-robed elders. They subconsciously stopped and looked up. A terrifying pressure enveloped them. A figure appeared above the dark cloud. It was Origin Court War God. Origin Court War God's face was filled with a murderous aura. He thrust his spear toward them. The two vomited blood at the same time as they collapsed in the void. Zhou Xuanji was surprised. He didn't expect that the death tribulation of these two old things would be Origin Court War God. Interesting. Beast Sovereign rushed over and was immediately stunned when he saw Origin Court War God above the sea of clouds. But very soon he understood. Fate manifestation technique. He has already mastered the new supreme divine ability to this level. Beast Sovereign felt incredible. He knew that Zhou Xuanji's talent was ridiculously strong. But when the two of them stood on opposite sides, the impact was too strong, making him confused. Was it a mistake for him to let Zhou Xuanji go? What was it that made Zhou Xuanji want to leave? After Zhou Xuanji left, many creatures gathered. Looking at the two black-robed old men twitching in the void, all the creatures were in an uproar. Isn't that Elder Xuangjue? How did he end up like this? Was it Origin Court War God who attacked just now? No, it's not the real Origin Court War God. It's the manifestation of some divine ability. I saw it. Elder Xuangjue wanted to stop Zhou Xuanji, but Zhou Xuanji is already this strong. Beast Sovereign approached Elder Xuangjue and brought them back to the Sovereign Palace to recuperate. Zhou Xuanji, on the other hand, returned to pure sword heaven. Everyone was still packing up their things. Jiang Shui stood in front of the pavilion, hesitating whether to move it or not. Zhou Xuanji suddenly appeared beside her, giving her a fright. It's over so soon? Jiang Shui pouted. There was some resentment in her eyes. This guy always appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Sooner or later, he would scare her to death. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, I have already laid my cards on the table. But two elders stopped me. They are already seriously injured. Beast Sovereign should not make things difficult for me anymore. Jiang Shui nodded and said with a sigh, Everyone has their own fate. They should support you so that you can support each other in the future. What a pity. Chapter 8:11. An hour later, everyone had packed their things, and Zhou Xuanji put them into the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. He, Jiang Shui, Zhou Tanhua, Zhou Shaoxian, and Changxian left in the Tri-Phoenix Chilling Carriage. Now, he no longer needed to be cautious. He wanted to openly leave the Evil Sky Divine Range and spread the news. The Tri-Phoenix Chilling Carriage smoothly left the Evil Sky Divine Range. This matter caused a huge commotion in the Evil Sky Divine Range. Now, Zhou Xuanji had become one of the representatives of the Evil Sky Divine Range, especially since he was in the limelight recently. He was extremely popular and had many admirers in the Divine Range. He had injured Elder Xuangju and forcefully charged out of the Evil Sky Divine Range. What did this mean? The Evil Sky Divine Range has fallen. We can't keep him. It's not his fault. Looking at the Evil Sky Divine Range's development over the years, even I want to leave. That's right. They've just gone through a calamity. Instead of recuperating properly, they actually want to start a war. Who will our Divine Range target next? Who knows? The higher-ups never say. We only know who the enemy is when they come. In the Evil Sky Divine Range, not many people were angry because of Zhou Xuanji's departure. Most of them were sighing in sorrow. After all, the news of Zhou Xuanji slaughtering 1 billion enemies near the Evil Sky Divine Range had already spread. They all knew that Zhou Xuanji had saved the Evil Sky Divine Range. With such achievements, no one would say that Zhou Xuanji betrayed the Evil Sky Divine Range if he left. After leaving the Evil Sky Divine Range, the Tri-Phoenix Chilling Carriage flew towards the void boundary. Zhou Xuanji planned to open up a world under the Kunlun Origin Court. He had collected a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. As long as he was given time, he could make the new world have the same environment as the Kunlun Origin Court. Father, where are we going next? Should I seek refuge with a divine range? Zhou Tanhua asked curiously. He just wanted to find a place to stop and cultivate. Zhou Xiaoshuan's eyes lit up, and she said excitedly, "We can actually find an abandoned divine range and create a new one." As soon as he said this, Zhou Xuanji, Zhou Tanhua, Jiang Shui, and Chang Xian's eyes lit up. That's right. Even if it's an abandoned divine vein, its foundation is incomparable to that of other universes. Chang Xian nodded and said with a smile, "In history, many divine veins were built on abandoned divine veins. With each passing generation, it is possible for them to become super divine veins or sovereign divine veins." Zhou Xuanji was moved. He didn't want to completely leave the Kunlun Origin Court. He just didn't want to rely on other divine ranges. He immediately got the Tri-Phoenix Qilin carriage to turn around, planning to wander around the Kunlun universe. In less than a month, the news of Zhou Xuanji leaving the Evil Sky Divine Range spread across the entire Kunlun Origin Court. Middle and upper divine ranges, super divine ranges, and sovereign divine ranges all took action to rope Zhou Xuanji in. However, they could not find Zhou Xuanji. In an inconspicuous deserted divine range on the Kunlun Origin Court side, Zhou Xuanji and the others had settled down. Namatian led a group of people over to help clean up the area. They also set up a vein protecting formation to isolate the other divine range's divine senses and deductions. Zhou Xuanji stood at the edge of the cliff with him and looked down at the vast ocean. The mist covered the sky, making it look like a dream. This divine range used to be a mid-ranked divine range. It's not bad. The degree of destruction is not high. It's enough for you to live and develop, Namatiani said with a smile. Ever since Zhou Xuanji left the Evil Sky Divine Range, he had been smiling every time he saw Zhou Xuanji. He looked down on the Evil Sky Divine Range from the bottom of his heart. Now that Zhou Xuanji had no one to rely on, it was the best time for him to realize his value. Thank you for the Tiani Divine Range's help. I won't say too much. After I become the sovereign, there's still a long way to go, Zhou Xuanji said with a nod. Namatiani's eyes narrowed into a smile. The two began chatting about the situation in the Kunlun Origin Court. Ever since the news of the Dark Sovereign's comeback spread, the entire Kunlun Origin Court was in a state of turmoil. All the divine ranges closed their doors to recuperate and prepare for the Dark Sovereign's arrival. It was a rare period of peace in the dark. "How's Wang Buao?" Zhou Xuanji suddenly asked. That guy wanted to feel the Dark Sovereign's power, but was scared silly on the spot. It was a little funny. Namatiani shook his head with a smile and said, "That guy was stimulated and is cultivating in seclusion." He felt that it was funny too, but it was a good opportunity to dampen Wang Buao's spirit, lest he became arrogant and conceited. "Okay, this divine range is almost cleaned up. I will leave the rest to you. It's time for me to leave with the disciples." Namatiani changed the topic and said, even if he didn't say it, Zhou Xuanji would expel him sooner or later. It was better to be tactful. Zhou Xuanji nodded and watched Namatiani leave. In less than half an hour, everyone from the Tiani Divine Range flew out of the Divine Range's protective array. Zhou Xuanji's divine sense covered the entire Divine Range. Although this Divine Range was not as good as the Evil Sky Divine Range, it was bigger than the Longbow Divine Range. It had tens of thousands of independent worlds, each of which was bigger than the Northern Wilderness region. They were rich in spiritual qi and abundant in resources. Zhou Xuanji released the world inside the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. The Northern Wilderness region was the lowest realm, followed by the Demon Realm, and above that were the living beings of the Great Thousand World. The 100 million disciples of Emperor Sword Court were scattered in the lower 100 realms. After so many years, the number of Emperor Sword Court's disciples had been increasing. Although many disciples had gone out with Xiao Jinghong and the others, the number of disciples left behind was still huge. Since they were new here and wanted to establish a new divine range, they had to have rules. Zhou Xuanji set up a cultivation threshold. After reaching the Saint Realm, they could go to the Upper Realm and choose a blessed place to cultivate. If they reached the Dao-treading Saint Realm, they could rule a realm alone. Countless years later, Emperor Sword Court would have more than 10,000 Dao-treading saints. But by then, the current Dao-treading saints would be even more powerful. 3 days later, Zhou Xuanji gathered all the living beings from the various realms. He cast the extreme nightmare abyss and pulled everyone into a dream. In the dream, he was high and mighty. All the living beings gathered on the grassland and looked up at him. From today onwards, we will establish our own divine range in the Kunlun Origin Court. This divine range will be called the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, and Emperor Sword Court will reign supreme. From now on, you must cultivate hard and strengthen the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Don't bring shame to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Zhou Xuanji spoke. His voice was extremely persuasive. All the living beings who heard him felt their blood boiling. Emperor, Sword Divine Range. Zhou Tanhua and Zhou Shaoxian were also looking up at their father. Their eyes were filled with admiration, especially Zhou Tanhua. All these years, Zhou Xuanji had personally taught him, which made him admire his father even more. Now, he completely believed that Zhou Xuanji was already a powerhouse of the Kunlun Origin Court and would surely become the sovereign in the future. This pulse-setting assembly lasted for 4 hours. None of the living beings felt tired or sleepy. After the extreme nightmare abyss ended, they still wanted to continue. Zhou Xuanji let them rest for half a month before he began preaching to them to help them grow their cultivation quickly. Chapter 8:12. When the Emperor's Sword Divine Range was established and everyone in the Emperor's Sword Court was working hard to cultivate, the Kunlun Origin Court was in turmoil. The news about Zhou Xuanji creating the Emperor's Sword Divine Range spread like wildfire. No matter how strong the Meridian Protection Array was, it couldn't stop the prying eyes of powerful beings. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range was established so quickly. Isn't Zhou Xuanji alone? How can he create a divine range? It's said that Zhou Xuanji has a world treasure and has long since brought his disciples and grand-disciples. Amazing. Even the Evil Sky Divine Range doesn't dare to have any objections when he creates his own divine range. That's right. If it were us, we would have been treated as traitors of the divine range and killed. In the Kunlun Origin Court, as long as there were living beings, everyone was discussing this matter. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range hadn't even made it public or done anything earth-shattering, but everyone in the Kunlun Origin Court knew about it first. It had to be said that Zhou Xuanji's fame and prestige had reached an extremely terrifying level. Many creatures did not realize this. At the same time, Zhou Xuanji didn't leave the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, but continued to lead the disciples in cultivation. Although the Kunlun Origin Court was in turmoil, no divine range dared to provoke or suppress the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Naturally, Namitiani had contributed to this. On the other hand, the Evil Sky Divine Range was wantonly mobilizing their troops. Those ancient and powerful experts and primogenitors returned one after another. They even started invading the surrounding divine ranges. In just a few short years, their forces expanded crazily, causing many divine ranges to feel uneasy. The news that Origin Court War God was the son of the Dark Supremacy also began to spread. At the same time, all kinds of terrifying legends about the Dark Supremacy were dug up and spread widely. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range's limelight was stolen by the Evil Sky Divine Range just like that. Zhou Xuanji was not unhappy about this because he did not care about this at all. Every once in a while, as long as a disciple reached the Saint Realm, Zhou Xuanji would send them out to gain experience and broaden their horizons. However, many of the disciples returned with heavy injuries, and some even died. These tragic tragedies made the disciples of Emperor's Sword Divine Range realize the cruelty of the Kunlun Origin Court. No one dared to rashly think of leaving Emperor's Sword Divine Range. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Xuanji turned 1,500 years old. Analyze that the sword owner has reached 1,500 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations. The sword owner has obtained all things fuse, infinite divine sword, delusion sea of swords. The sword spirit's voice never changed. It was still cold and timely. Information about the non-existence divine sword appeared before his eyes. Sword name, non-existent divine sword level. Myriad fusion, description. There is no definition of existence, but is filled with danger. Within the rules, it is impossible to detect its existence. Using this sword requires the cultivation of at least origin fusion divine, Lord level 3. No definition of existence. The ultimate version of shadowless sword? Zhou Xuanji could not help but feel curious. He naturally looked forward to such a legendary sword. Then, he imparted the delusion sea of swords. A large amount of memories flowed into his mind. He closed his eyes and quietly experienced it. The illusory thoughts sea of swords transformed his thoughts into a sea of sword chi. The might of the sea of swords was related to his thoughts. This sword Tao divine art was even more profound and exquisite than the primordial chaos sword shadow. It was extremely destructive and powerful, and at the same time, it had infinite transformations. After learning the delusional sword sea, Zhou Xuanji got up and left his palace. He arrived in front of the cliff outside the palace and looked down. Below him was a majestic and magnificent city that stood on a floating island. With a sweep of his divine will, he took in the entire situation of the Emperor Sword Divine range. Most of the disciples were cultivating diligently and dared not to slack off. The entire Emperor Sword Divine range was thriving. Although it was not crowded, it was filled with a sense of vitality that led straight to the peak of the divine range. If this continues, we will soon be comparable to some inferior divine ranges, Zhou Xuanji said with a satisfied smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a satisfied smile. He was calculating without considering himself. Otherwise, with his cultivation, the Emperor's Sword Divine range was already comparable to an intermediate divine range. Origin Fusion Divine Lord was a top-notch existence in the Kunlun Origin Court. But in the superior divine ranges, super divine ranges, and sovereign divine ranges, there were countless origin fusion divine lords. From a certain perspective, this could be considered a monopoly of the powerful. Zhou Xuanji decided to visit Xian Xianghua. After so many years, he wondered how she was doing with her cultivation. After the thought, he left the Emperor's Sword Divine range and disappeared into the depths of the universe. An hour later, Zhou Xuanji came to the mortal plane. On the deserted island, Xian Xianghua was sitting cross-legged, cultivating quietly. There was no mortal sovereign around. It looked very lonely and depressing. The floating mortal chi seemed to be shrouded in mist. Suddenly, Xian Xianghua opened her eyes. Her exterminating divine eyes suppressed the surrounding space. Zhou Xuanji could sense her powerful spatial power. Unfortunately, he had the exterminating saint physique and was not suppressed by the space. Xian Xianghua looked back and was pleasantly surprised when she saw Zhou Xuanji. She quickly got up and asked, "Why are you here?" At the same time, she was shocked in her heart. "How strong is my husband now?" During this time, her cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. She had already reached the second vast heavens, but she still felt small in front of Zhou Xuanji. Her exterminating divine eyes were connected to Zhou Xuanji's exterminating divine eyes. After Zhou Xuanji returned, her cultivation had been improving, and with the help of mortal sovereign, her cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. She even comprehended suppressing the universe on her own. Back then, Zhou Xuanji taught her the technique, but she couldn't grasp the gist of it. Now, she had completely mastered it. "I came to see you. Your cultivation is really good. You didn't embarrass me," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Hearing this, Xian Xianghua raised her chin. She smiled proudly and said, "Of course, but it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, how could I improve so quickly?" She looked at Zhou Xuanji with admiration. Zhou Xuanji asked in confusion, Where is mortal sovereign? Why isn't she here? Xian Xianghua replied. She left for a long time. I don't know why. No one can break in here except for you. So she left with peace of mind. She tried to break through the space here, but it didn't work. The power of the mortal qi almost backfired on her. Zhou Xuanji thought about it. He was very curious about what Shun Tang was busy with. Could it be related to Dark Sovereign? You came at the right time. I was just about to look for you. A cold voice suddenly came into their ears. Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua turned around and saw Mortal Sovereign appearing in the air, looking down at them. Mortal Sovereign, as usual, was shrouded in mortal qi. He looked mysterious and sharp. Zhou Xuanji asked, "What's the matter?" Mortal Sovereign replied, "It's related to Origin Court War God. I hope you can kill him personally and seize his War God's power." War God's power is a kind of supreme rule power. This is also the reason why Origin Court War God is invincible. When Zhou Xuanji heard this, he didn't immediately agree. Instead, he started thinking. He already knew that Origin Court War God was Dark Sovereign's son. But Origin Court War God had also helped him. He didn't want to kill him just like that. However, War God's power made him very curious. Chapter 8:13. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji was silent, Mortal Sovereign thought that Zhou Xuanji was thinking about old times, so he continued to persuade. Origin Court War God's goal is the entire Kunlun Origin Court. If you don't stop him, the Kunlun Origin Court will be destroyed, and you and the people you care about will not survive. This guy is very shrewd. Originally, the sovereign wanted to train him to be the next sovereign, but he schemed against the sovereign because of this. He can resist the temptation of the sovereign, but I can't guess his real purpose. Maybe he also has evil intentions towards the Dark Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He couldn't help but guess Origin Court War God's real intention. Xian Xianghua curiously asked, "If someone as strong as the sovereign can't figure out the origin of Origin Court War God, what kind of sovereign is he?" In her opinion, the sovereign was invincible, omnipotent, and omniscient. The sovereign of this generation really made her speechless. He was killed by his subordinates without anyone knowing. How could he still be considered a sovereign? When she was the sect lord of Tanhua sect, she couldn't tolerate even a grain of sand in her eyes. Whoever made her unhappy, she would directly destroy them. As long as they were suspected, she would make them disappear in front of her eyes. It was this kind of domineering attitude that allowed Tanhua sect to dominate an era. After so many years, she had changed a lot, but the domineering attitude in her bones was still there. Mortal Sovereign coldly said, "He is indeed useless. Looking at history, his achievements and strength are nothing." Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, "When will we set off?" Mortal Sovereign said, "Now, you and your wife can go together. Let her broaden her horizons." Hearing this, Xian Xianghua immediately became excited. She also wanted to see the battle of the top experts of the Kunlun Origin Court. Mortal Sovereign waved his hand, sweeping Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua away with the mortal qi. While traveling, Zhou Xuanji asked about the specific situation. Origin Court War God is hiding between reality and illusion. The Wheel Summit has trapped him. He is waiting for the Dark Sovereign to come and rescue him. I need you to kill him before the Dark Sovereign arrives and deprive him of the War God's power. Mortal Sovereign replied, looking straight ahead. Autarch Crimson Dust replied, staring straight ahead. Xian Xianghua curiously asked, "Origin Court War God was trapped by you so easily. It seems that this tribulation isn't unbreakable." The Darkness Supreme tribulation had already spread like wildfire in the Kunlun Origin Court, scaring all the divine ranges into trembling with fear, not daring to fight again. Although Origin Court War God and Dark Supreme are related, without Origin Court War God, Dark Supreme will still come back. His seal is about to break. Once the rules can't stop him, the catastrophe will not change. Now, I just want your husband to become as strong as possible. Supreme Crimson Dust tone was no longer cold, but rather somewhat teasing, especially when he used the word husband. Xian Xianghua fell into deep thought. Zhou Xuanji, on the other hand, was embarrassed. Why did he hear a trace of bitterness in mortal sovereign's tone? However, supremacy Crimson Dust had nurtured him in such a way that he found it hard to accept. After all, the matter of Shen Yinxing had always made him feel that he owed Shen Tang. He took a deep breath and stopped thinking about it. In the darkness, Origin Court War God was entangled by chains formed by gray gas. His head and hands drooped, and there were many cracks on his golden armor. Luan Feng was meditating in front of him, less than 1,000 feet away. The two of them faced each other with their eyes closed, causing the dark universe to seem extremely quiet. At this moment, a red spatial crack appeared beside Luan Feng. Supreme Crimson Dust walked out with Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua. Zhou Xuanji's eyes locked onto Origin Court War God first. At this moment, Origin Court War God looked so embarrassed and lonely. Zhou Xuanji could feel that his aura was a little off. Compared to his previous upright and mighty aura, there was a trace of evil. Luan Feng opened his eyes, glanced at Zhou Xuanji, and said with a smile, "Little brother, we meet again." He didn't have any aversion to seeing Zhou Xuanji and Supreme Crimson Dust walking together. On the contrary, he appreciated Zhou Xuanji even more. This showed that Zhou Xuanji's talent was indeed unparalleled. Even someone as strong as Supreme Crimson Dust was willing to nurture him personally. If the Destiny Manifestation technique was passed on to such a genius, it would definitely be carried forward and spread far and wide. Zhou Xuanji cupped his fists and sighed. Senior is really powerful. You can easily suppress Origin Court War God. Hearing his voice, Origin Court War God looked up at him with a complicated look in his eyes. Luan Feng snorted and said, "This guy is nothing. His heart has changed and is repelled by the War God's power. His strength is only at the level of Origin Fusion Divine, Lord Seven Enlightened." Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but look at Origin Court War God. Can a War God's power have such a strong boost? As far as he knew, Origin Court War God could definitely sweep away Origin Fusion Divine Lords and sprint toward a higher realm. Origin Court War God was also looking at him. Their eyes met. Both of them looked very calm. Zhou Xuanji slowly said, "I won't say much. Our positions are different. Are you ready?" Origin Court War God weakly said, "The War God's power is not something you can obtain. You'd better not have it. It is a powerful force and also an irreversible restraint." Zhou Xuanji heard this but didn't take it to heart. As long as you are strong enough, you can control any power. Nothing is irreversible. What's more, he still had the inverse chaos divine ability to reverse everything. Supreme Crimson Dust flew up to Origin Court War God and pulled with his hand. Origin Court War God let out a hoarse roar as a golden light was pulled out of his body. His entire body seemed to have been sucked dry. His skin shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Catch!" Supreme Crimson Dust shouted as the golden light flew toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji raised his hand, preparing to catch the War God's power. But at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Zhou Fa. His eyes were pitch black, and his body was wrapped in a layer of black light. His hair was messy, dancing wildly in the wind. He looked like a devil. He directly embraced the War God's power as his whole body burst out with a brilliant golden light. "Courting death," Supreme Crimson Dust said coldly as he raised his palm and punched. Boom! The palm wind struck, and Zhou Fa's body instantly disappeared like a flickering lamp. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. How did this guy appear here? I didn't notice it. Neither did Supreme Crimson Dust and the Wheel Peak. Did Zhou Fa become stronger again? Ha ha! Supreme Crimson Dust, you want to torture me slowly until I collapse. Today, I ruined your plan and took away the War God's power. Do you hate me? Do you hate me? Zhou Fa laughed wildly. Obviously, he was venting his hatred. The golden light shrank and turned into a figure of light. He didn't get killed by Supreme Crimson Dust's palm. Will Peak frowned. Narrowing his eyes, he mumbled, "Black desire, divine eyes, and a mysterious force. What is its origin?" Supreme Crimson Dust didn't attack again, but looked at Zhou Fa quietly. Xian Xianghua flew to Zhou Xuanji's side and asked telepathically, "Why aren't they attacking?" She was very angry when she saw Zhou Fa. This guy not only coveted her son, but also stole Zhou Xuanji's opportunity. "How hateful!" Zhou Xuanji replied, "It's probably a trap." He knew Zhou Fa's strength very well. Even if Zhou Fa really had a trump card, he wouldn't be stronger than Supreme Crimson Dust and Will Peak. Chapter 814. Zhou Xuanji waited for Zhou Fa to absorb the war god's power. Red Dust Sovereign and Luan Dian did the same. None of them spoke. Origin Court War God looked up and saw Zhou Fa, who had turned into a figure of light. His old face showed a mocking expression. Zhou Fa didn't clamor anymore. He was trying his best to suppress the battle god's might in his body. It was obvious that the battle god's might was very difficult to absorb. His aura had always been unstable. Xian Xianghua sized up her surroundings, fearing that the Dark Sovereign would suddenly appear. The atmosphere was strange and oppressive. After a long while, Zhou Fa's body suddenly twisted violently, as if he was about to explode at any moment. The power of the war god requires absolute righteousness and a fearless will. You don't have it, so you don't deserve to be the war god. Autar Crimson Dust said coldly. She did not make a move, obviously waiting for Zhou Fa to kill himself. Zhou Fa gritted his teeth and said, "I will definitely be able to absorb it. If the Origin Court War God can, why can't I?" The Origin Court War God had the evil intention of destroying the Kunlun Origin Court, but he could obtain the power of the War God. Why couldn't he? Supreme Crimson Dust didn't reply, but Luan Dian revealed a disdainful smile. How naive. As time continued to pass, Zhou Fa's aura became more and more violent, as if it would explode at any moment. Zhou Xuanji observed Zhou Fa attentively. More accurately, he observed the power of the war god. Now, Zhou Fa was on the verge of collapse, as if he could explode and die at any time. The golden light on his body flickered incessantly, changing between bright and dark. Luan Dian laughed. "This brat probably won't make it. Should we send him on his way?" Although Zhou Fa looked exactly like Zhou Xuanji, he was filled with contempt towards Zhou Fa. In his eyes, this guy was just an imitation of Zhou Xuanji, a third-rate cultivator. Sovereign Hong Chun nodded, and Luan Dian immediately acted, drawing out the war god's power from Zhou Fa's body. The golden light left his body, and Zhou Fa, who was covered in blood, was revealed. His aura instantly dropped, and he became extremely weak. The golden ball of light formed by the war god's power rushed into Zhou Xuanji's body. In an instant, Zhou Xuanji was enveloped by a golden radiance, and his aura grew tremendously. At this moment, he was in the same situation as Zhou Fa, turning into a man of light. The intense light forced Xian Xianghua to retreat and pull away from Zhou Xuanji. Luan Dian smiled in satisfaction. "This is the difference. Look at him. His condition is so stable. He is naturally suited for the war god's power." Origin Court War God had a complicated look on his face. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Autar Crimson Dust didn't say a word. Red dust energy swirled around her body, preventing her from revealing her true appearance, making it impossible for anyone to guess her expression. Zhou Fa was on the verge of death. When he raised his head to look, his face was filled with jealousy and madness. He lost to Zhou Xuanji again. This time, it was a fight for the opportunity. Don't even think about it. You can go die now. Luan Dian snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, he sent Zhou Fa into a spatial crack, making him disappear from everyone's sight. Xian Xianghua curiously asked, "Where did he go? Will he survive?" She was not pleading for Zhou Fa. Instead, she hoped that Zhou Fa would die. Luan Dian proudly laughed. "He will die without a doubt." Then, he waved his right hand and sucked the Origin Court War God over. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuanji was suppressing the war god's power in his body. The invading saint physique displayed its unique power, allowing the war god's power to integrate into all his muscles and bones without any hindrance. Finally, it poured into his soul. It was even easier than expected. There was almost no pain. Although the war god's power is powerful, it's not beyond my expectations, Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. At this rate, he would soon be able to completely absorb the war god's power. Autar Crimson Dust nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "This should be in the bag. Next, we just need to be careful of the invasion of the Darkness Sovereign's power." Luan Dian nodded and sighed. Why do I feel that the war god's power is nothing to him? This kid's physique is not simple. He had seen many people inherit the war god's power, but Zhou Xuanji was the calmest. Yes, his physique is probably the invading saint physique. You should have heard of it, Autar Crimson Dust said softly. Sovereign Hong Chun said softly, causing Luan Dian to widen his eyes, his face filled with astonishment. Soon after, his expression became subtle. Xian Xianghua noticed the change in his expression and was curious. What is the origin of the invading saint physique? How could it move such a powerful cultivator? At the same time, she sighed in her heart. How many trump cards does Zhou Xuanji have? As his wife, she couldn't know everything about him. Luan Dian sighed again. This kid will be incredible in the future. I'm afraid he will become an existence that surpasses the Darkness Sovereign. This was definitely a high evaluation. Origin Court War God's expression changed when he heard this. Xian Xianghua, on the other hand, was delighted. She decided to find an opportunity to ask Zhou Xuanji what was so powerful about his invading saint physique and how he cultivated it. About the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Zhou Xuanji completely absorbed the war god's power, and his aura skyrocketed. He began to break through. Origin Fusion Divine, Lord Erming. Even if there was no spiritual qi or Tao energy nearby, he could still break through by relying on the war god's power. Origin Court War God couldn't believe his transformation speed. How can it be? Origin Court War God cried out involuntarily. A look of horror appeared on his old and shriveled face. He had inherited the war god's power and knew how terrifying it was. He couldn't understand how Zhou Xuanji did it. Zhou Xuanji was focused on breaking through. How could he know what was happening outside? The war god's power had completely integrated into Zhou Xuanji's muscles and bones, merging with the origin fusion divine power. The golden light on his body dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye. His whole body was surrounded by a divine brilliance, as though he was possessed by the war god. The heavenly tribulation had yet to arrive, but it led straight to Erming. All of this seemed easy for Zhou Xuanji. He slowly opened his eyes, feeling the surging origin fusion divine power in his body. His expression was calm. Not bad. He looked at mortal sovereign and said, "This power didn't make me feel any great transformation." Origin Court War God almost fainted from anger when he heard this. Luan Dian sighed. It's not that the war god's power isn't enough. It's that your invading saint physique is too overbearing. It directly suppressed this powerful force that protects the Kunlun origin court. Mortal Sovereign nodded and said, "You will understand the true effect of the war god's power later. At least let this power settle down first, lest there be any side issues." Xian Xianghua flew to Zhou Xuanji's side and sized him up. A look of worship appeared on her face. She said enviously, "You have become stronger again. It feels so difficult to catch up with you." This feeling of powerlessness wasn't the first time. She was almost used to it. Zhou Xuanji smiled at her. His eyes flickered with purple light as he said, "Our eyes are connected. I will take you to become stronger." Then, he looked at Origin Court War God and asked, "Do you want to live?" He had an old friendship with Origin Court War God. He couldn't bear to kill Origin Court War God directly. Origin Court War God sighed and said, "It's best to kill me. If you don't kill me, they won't let me go." Chapter 8:15. That's right. He must disappear. Luan Dian said domineeringly. His attitude was firm. He didn't want Origin Court War God to have a chance to live. Crimson Dust Supremacy nodded. In their eyes, Origin Court War God was also a great threat. This guy might have the idea of rebelling against dark supremacy. Zhou Xuanji was silent. He could only turn around and fly towards Xian Xianghua. I'll leave the rest to you. You must eliminate any future troubles. You can't kill him directly. Then, he waved his hand and left with Zhou Xuanji and his wife. Luan Dian curled his lips and said, "You really know how to give instructions. If you're worried, you can do it yourself." After saying that, he tore the space apart with Origin Court War God and disappeared without a trace. In the space-time turbulence, a mass of red dust chi shuttled back and forth at an extremely fast speed. Zhou Xuanji, Xian Xianghua, and Mortal Sovereign were among them. They were talking about the War God's power. According to Supremacy Crimson Dust, the strongest aspect of the War God's power wasn't strength, but rather a kind of will. This kind of will would allow him to grow stronger and stronger in battle. He would never give up no matter how many setbacks he faced. Zhou Xuanji felt that something was not right. Could this ability be a type of restriction? Never giving up was not an absolute quality of character. What if he has no choice but to surrender? Wouldn't the force of the divine god of battle be harming him? Xian Xianghua asked. She was thinking the same thing as Zhou Xuanji. Supremacy Crimson Dust replied, "That's right. Everything has its pros and cons. As long as he's strong enough, he won't lower his head." Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji felt speechless. As long as he was strong enough, why would he need War God's power? Xian Xianghua's expression was the same as Zhou Xuanji's. She also felt that Zhou Xuanji had been conned. But now that things had come to this, they could only accept it. Will it be peaceful for a while? Asked Xian Xianghua. With the death of Origin Court War God, Dark Supremacy had lost an arm in the Kunlun Origin Court. Presumably, it would take some time for Dark Supremacy to make a comeback. Autar Crimson Dust nodded and said, "You can put it that way. You don't need to do anything after this. Just focus on cultivating." The reason why she called him Zhou Xuanji was because she wanted to pass down the power of the War God. Otherwise, once the Origin Court War God died, the power of the War God would wander around the Kunlun Origin Court, which would become a variable. Zhou Xuanji also wanted to spend some time to study the War God's power. The three of them quickly left the space-time turbulence. In the endless darkness, Zhou Fa's soul was wrapped in a pale white light. His soul was faintly discernible and could explode at any moment. He was currently enduring unimaginable pain. If it were anyone else, their soul would have long since turned to ash. "I can't accept it. I can't accept it. Top of the wheel. Mortal Supreme. Origin Court War God. I want all of you dead. I want all of you dead." He spoke weakly, his voice hoarse and without any imposing manner. His soul was shrinking and could disappear at any moment. Right at this moment, a beam of light descended and instantly enveloped Zhou Fa's soul. "Umph, you're really useless." A cold snort resounded through the endless darkness. Zhou Fa trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. The pillar of light shrank and disappeared, and Zhou Fa disappeared as well. The word lightning appeared where he had been standing. Punishment. After returning to the Emperor's Sword Divine range, Zhou Xuanji began his closed-door cultivation. As for Xian Xianghua, she followed Mortal Sovereign back to cultivate. The news of the Origin Court War God's death didn't spread in the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji didn't tell anyone about it either. He left quickly and returned quickly as well. Hence, no one in the Emperor's Sword Divine range noticed his return. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Zhou Xuanji had completely mastered the War God's power. The will of the War God's power was like some kind of rule, affecting his thinking invisibly. Compared to the past, his thinking became less and less narrow. He always felt that he could solve everything with his own divine power. No matter the enemy, he could kill them with a single punch. No wonder the Origin Court War God was so domineering. With a divine spear, he was invincible and became the Kunlun Origin Court's law enforcement war god, above all the divine ranges. Suddenly, one day, a divine range master came to visit. Zhou Xuanji asked Deoya Old Man to meet him. When the divine range master saw Deoya Old Man's cultivation, he looked a little embarrassed. He felt that Zhou Xuanji was putting on airs. Fortunately, Jiang Shui introduced Deoya Old Man to him. This incident made the range master understand Zhou Xuanji's past. He was in awe of Zhou Xuanji. Not only that, but this matter also spread in the Kunlun origin court and became a legend. More and more divine range masters came to visit Zhou Xuanji, wanting to establish a friendly relationship with him. The Emperor's Sword divine range didn't reject anyone. Their reputation began to increase. From the beginning to the end, Zhou Xuanji didn't appear in person. His attitude was criticized at first, but later on, everyone got used to it. Invisibly, Zhou Xuanji's status was rising. His image became more mysterious. The disciples of the Emperor's Sword divine range also left the range to train. These disciples had already reached the Saint Realm. Under the blue sky and white clouds, Zhou Shaoxian and Zhou Tanhua were sparring. Two powerful divine eyes were displaying their divine abilities. After so many years, Zhou Shaoxuan's Kongtong divine eyes had already been developed. It could see through reality and absorb everything. Zhou Tanhua's exterminating divine eyes were also very strong. They were no less inferior to his sister. Zhou Xuanji stood on the trunk of a big tree, quietly watching the battle. This kid's talent is really amazing, Zhou Xuanji sighed with emotion. Zhou Tanhua had been in the pure sword heaven before, but now he had been staying in the Emperor's Sword divine range for a long time. He didn't have the opportunity to obtain opportunities, but it was under such circumstances that his cultivation had been advancing by leaps and bounds. At present, he was already breaking through to the Tao Ancestor realm. He was a legend in the Emperor's Sword divine range, just like Zhou Xuanji in the past. Zhou Shaoxuan's talent was also very strong. Unfortunately, Zhou Tanhua had overshadowed her. Tanhua, how did you become stronger again? Zhou Shaoxian said indignantly. She looked unwilling. Zhou Tanhua was calm and elegant. He chuckled and said, "Sister, you are also very good." This sentence stimulated Zhou Shaoxian even more. She mobilized her Tao energy and frantically cast her divine abilities. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and burst into laughter. He could see at a glance that Zhou Tanhua was letting Zhou Shaoxian win. But Zhou Shaoxian took it seriously. Ever since Zhou Tanhua revealed his talent, Zhou Shaoxian had been targeting her younger brother. Fortunately, this kind of competition was benign. There was no jealousy to speak of. When Zhou Tanhua disappeared, Zhou Shaoxian also cried anxiously. After all, she had watched Zhou Tanhua grow up. Zhou Xuanji was naturally gratified to have such a pair of talented children. He wondered if he should help his children find some opportunities. Just by cultivating like this, it would be very unsafe when they faced life and death situations in the future. After thinking about it, Zhou Xuanji disappeared from the tree trunk. At the same time, in the void boundary, black shadows were moving forward, stirring up billowing black mist. It was as if a group of demon gods had arrived. Their baleful aura was terrifying. As far as the eye could see, it was impossible to count how many black shadows there were. The black shadow in the lead was 1,000 feet tall, with 4 green eyes. He roared in a low voice, "Devour the origin court without delay." Chapter 816. Countless black shadows advanced like an army of death, shaking the void boundary. The 4-eyed giant figure in the lead grew taller step by step. Waves of black mist escaped from his body and filled the surroundings. The outline of a divine range appeared in front of him like a miniature of another world. "Devour the origin court, no time to waste," he shouted again. This time, the hundreds of divine ranges nearby could hear him. "Devour the origin court." Immediately, many powerful divine senses swept over, locking onto the Black Shadow army. What's that? What a terrifying aura! Enemy attack. get ready to fight, and inform the other divine ranges to fight together. Such a lineup, which force is it? Their strength is definitely at the origin fusion divine lord level. So powerful, I can't see through them at all. All the divine ranges were discussing this matter in shock. Very soon, they sent a large number of experts to stop them. A great battle broke out. Far away on the other side of the Kunlun origin court, Zhou Xuanji suddenly opened his eyes. He frowned slightly and mumbled, "What's going on? Such a familiar aura." He immediately used the exterminating divine eyes, extending his gaze to the other side of the Kunlun origin court. He saw the battle at a glance. Countless living beings were in a chaotic battle with the Shadow Legion, and the sounds of battle and shrill cries rose and fell, causing this area to fall into a ghastly and terrifying atmosphere. Who are these guys? Why is there an aura of space-time turbulence? Zhou Xuanji frowned, looking confused. Could they be the minions of the Dark Sovereign? If he could arrange for Origin Court War God, he could naturally arrange for other subordinates to hide in the Kunlun Origin Court. He didn't take action, but continued to watch the battle. Those black shadows were very powerful. They had mastered all kinds of mysterious divine abilities. In a one-on-one situation, they were almost stronger than the Kunlun Origin Court. The battle was almost one-sided. If they continued to fight, the Black Shadow Army would definitely enter the Kunlun Origin Court. The most important thing was that there was still a steady stream of black shadows coming out of the void boundary. Among them, there was no lack of aura that shocked Zhou Xuanji. At this moment, he wasn't the only one watching the battle. Many powerhouses and range masters in the Kunlun Origin Court were watching from afar. The strength shown by the Black Shadow Army was enough to make many divine ranges tremble. Therefore, there was no support from other experts for the time being. Many powerhouses were worried. Could this be the arrangement of the Dark Sovereign? This speculation made them even more afraid to act rashly. After about half a cup of tea's time, all the living beings that want to fight were killed. The Black Shadow Army began to wreak havoc in the nearby divine ranges. Then came the tragedy of the Origin Court. This Black Shadow Army was unbridled and had no intention of stopping. Not long after, some of the great divine ranges started to take action. Countless experts flew out from all directions and surrounded the Black Shadow Corps. The battle erupted again, and Zhou Xuanji continued to observe. He always felt that the origin of the Black Shadow Legion was unclear. If it was related to the chaotic tides of space and time, it might be a threat to him. He had experienced too many conspiracies, so he had to be careful. Fortunately, the Kunlun Origin Court wasn't weak. When the great divine ranges attacked, the Black Shadow Army stopped. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji no longer paid attention to it and focused on cultivating. Even if the sky collapsed, there were other divine ranges to hold it up. In less than half a year, the news of the Black Shadow Legion had spread throughout the Kunlun Origin Court. They weren't defeated. Instead, they continued to wreak havoc in the Kunlun Origin Court. No divine range could stop them. They could only slow down their attacks. In just half a year, they had slaughtered countless living beings. They didn't stop. It was as if they were demons who only knew how to kill. They didn't even need to rest and recuperate. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range also learned about this. Most disciples were discussing this matter. Coupled with the darkness, sovereign tribulation, the atmosphere in the Emperor's Sword Divine Range was a little solemn. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range was like this. Naturally, the other divine ranges were even more terrified. On this day, Deoya Old Man, Chang Xian, Zhou Shaoxian, Zhou Tanhua, and the others gathered outside his palace, asking to see him. Zhou Xuanji let them into the palace and asked what was going on. "Father, the Kunlun Origin Court has been swept by a mysterious demon army recently. What should we do?" Zhou Shaoxian asked excitedly. Obviously, she hoped that the Emperor's Sword Divine Range would take action to wipe out the demons and restore their reputation. Zhou Xuanji replied in a bad mood. "Which one of you has the ability to stop them?" Everyone wasn't embarrassed. On the contrary, they looked eager. Zhou Xuanji was already a rare expert in the Kunlun Origin Court. They naturally had to rely on Zhou Xuanji's strength. "Father, The Emperor Sword Divine range has just been established. We can't always rely on our former disciples. We also have to recruit creatures from the Kunlun Origin Court as disciples. If we win this battle beautifully, it will definitely boost the prestige of the Emperor Sword Divine range. Zhou Tanhua followed up. Zhou Tanhua followed, his eyes full of longing. He really wanted to go out and make a name for himself. Up until now, he hadn't really created his own brilliance. As a man, there was always a flame burning in his heart. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but ponder. He thought about his past and how many powerful enemies he had defeated that seemed invincible. Maybe it was time for him to learn to let go. Well, get ready to fight. I will personally lead you there. The corner of Zhou Xuanji's mouth rose, smiling in high spirits. As soon as he said this, everyone immediately became excited. This was the kind of Zhou Xuanji they liked. The domineering sword emperor who was never afraid. Go and get ready first. We will set off in an hour. Zhou Xuanji instructed, and everyone immediately turned around and left. The palace gate closed. Zhou Xuanji was the only one left in the palace. It was quiet again. Just as he was about to close his eyes to cultivate, he suddenly frowned. "Come out," he shouted in a deep voice as he glanced at a corner of the palace. A black shadow loomed in the darkness. As soon as he spoke, the black shadow stepped out. It was Zhou Fa. Zhou Fa's current state was obviously different from before. Zhou Fa's whole body was wrapped in black qi, and his face was covered with many fine lines. If one looked closely, they would find that these fine lines were composed of black punishment characters. It was very horrifying. His eyes were pitch black, and no one could see through what he was thinking. Seeing Zhou Fa like this, Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but squint his eyes and say, "You are not dead yet?" Zhou Fa walked to the center of the palace and turned to look at him. He then said leisurely, "I am an immortal existence. They did kill me, but I came back to life. This time, I came to you to formally declare war. I have never harmed you. I even wanted to help you, but you didn't help me get rid of the hidden illness left by Mortal Sovereign. When Mortal Sovereign and Luan Pinnacle wanted to kill me, you didn't stop them. From today onwards, you and I are no longer friends. The appearance of the Black Time Soul Army is just the beginning. Before Dark Sovereign descends, I will slaughter the Kunlun Origin Court and become the supreme ruler." Zhou Fa stared at Zhou Xuanji and said word by word. His pitch-black eyes looked so cold and emotionless. Zhou Xuanji found it funny and asked, "When have you and I ever been friends?" Chapter 817. Black Hour Soul Army. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji was even more certain that this army was related to the space-time chaos tide. Zhou Fa stared at him and said, "There's indeed a debt of gratitude. It's just that you don't remember it. But that's not important anymore." After saying that, Zhou Fa slowly retreated, his face gradually becoming distorted. Looking at his hateful expression, Zhou Xuanji felt a little helpless. As for Zhou Fa, he had never been able to figure it out. Where did this guy come from? What was his goal? What did it have to do with him? Since we're going to be mortal enemies, why don't you clear up my doubts and clarify our relationship? At that time, even if I lose, let me die in peace." Zhou Xuanji sighed and said faintly. He was not afraid of becoming enemies with Zhou Fa, but he had doubts in his heart and was very unhappy. Zhou Fa said calmly, "Even if I tell you, you won't forget me. Back then in the northern wilderness region, you helped me. To you, I'm just a passerby. Zhou Xuanji, I want to fight you fair and square. Let's see if your Emperor Sword Divine range is more powerful or if my Black Sword Court is more powerful." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Fa disappeared. Northern wilderness region? He had saved countless people, so how could he remember who they were? Zhou Xuanji shook his head and laughed. Although he did not know how Zhou Fa came back to life, it was not important. 2 hours later, Zhou Xuanji left with tens of thousands of Emperor Sword Divine range disciples. Zhou Tanhua and Zhou Shaoxian followed behind him, their faces full of excitement. "Tanhua, are you afraid? What are you afraid of?" Shouldn't we look forward to it? TSK, you really know how to act. Don't pee your pants when the time comes. Sister, don't talk nonsense. What if it's you? Girls are so shy. Hearing the siblings bicker, Zhou Xuanji almost laughed out loud. Hopefully, they could maintain their relationship and not turn against each other. Nothing happened along the way. Under Zhou Xuanji's majestic divine power, they quickly arrived at the battlefield. The Black Hour Soul Army was besieged by the armies of more than 10 divine ranges, but they were not at a disadvantage. Instead, they were getting stronger. Zhou Xuanji, who was wearing a white robe, shouted, "Kill!" Tens of thousands of Emperor Sword Divine Range disciples immediately rushed to the battlefield, all of them extremely excited. Zhou Xuanji was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he sized up the gigantic black shadow with 4 green eyes. The 30,000-meter-tall figure was incredibly eye-catching, and Zhou Xuanji could not help but look at him. What realm is this guy at? He doesn't seem much weaker than Be Sovereign, Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. When he looked at the gigantic shadow, it was also looking at him. Who is this person? Why does his constitution make me feel uneasy? The huge black shadow thought in astonishment. It was not that the Black Hour Soul Army did not have any intelligence. They just obeyed his orders. His title was Dark Time Divine King, and he led the entire Dark Time Soul Army. This time, he swore to devour the Kunlun Origin Court. So even though he could not see through Zhou Xuanji, he was not afraid. Humph! I'll kill you first. Divine King Black Time's 4 green eyes flashed with a strange light, and the Black Time Soul Army immediately turned and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. Legendary swords appeared around Zhou Xuanji, and he directly cast Sword Sect Immortal Ghost Weep, causing all of the legendary swords to wrap around his body and give off a brilliant silver light. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji was definitely the peerless Sword Emperor of the Kunlun Origin Court. His terrifying aura was like a tornado, instantly attracting countless gazes. Who is that? It's him, Zhou Xuanji. Such a powerful aura. He's really an Origin Fusion Divine Lord. Not just an Origin Fusion Divine Lord. Even my teacher can't compare to him. It's the first time I've felt such an aura. That's right. We're saved now. Ever since Zhou Xuanji was born, has he ever been defeated? Zhou Xuanji's appearance immediately made everyone excited, especially those with insufficient Dao energy. They were overjoyed. Divine King Black Time came aggressively. He led his army toward Zhou Xuanji. His momentum was so great that many people were scared out of their wits. Even the Emperor Sword Divine Range's disciples were frightened. Facing the countless Black Time Soul Army, how could they not be afraid? Although they were afraid, they did not dodge. Just when they were about to fight, the entire space-time froze, immobilizing them. The Black Time Soul Army froze as well. All of them maintained their hideous and horrifying postures. Divine King Black Time could still move, but his speed was greatly reduced. Zhou Xuanji walked forward. Thousands of legendary swords circled around him at high speed, giving off a sharp sound that pierced through space-time. Everything froze. Only Zhou Xuanji and Divine King Black Time were still walking toward each other. Their eyes met. Murderous intent burst forth. The Soul Source Orb shot out from Zhou Xuanji's glabella. At the same time, he cast the exterminating Divine Light. 2 beams of purple light shot out. Just as they were about to envelop Divine King Black Time, Divine King Black Time disappeared in a thin air and appeared above Zhou Xuanji's head in a single step. He raised his right hand as black qi condensed into a sharp blade and slashed toward Zhou Xuanji. This blade contained the rules of space-time, shaking the domineering power of the suppression universe. Swish, swish, swish. All the legendary swords suddenly turned around and charged upward. They were like a school of carps crossing the river or a rain of arrows. Divine King Black Time slashed down with his blade, deflecting the legendary swords one after another. Although he didn't completely block his blade, the speed of the blade's descent was drastically reduced. Zhou Xuanji raised his eyes as silver light burst out from his body, sweeping in all directions. Delusion, sword sea, transforming thoughts into sea. The vast silver sea contained countless silver swords, covering the entire Kunlun universe. The scene was extremely spectacular. Those who were frozen in the suppression universe opened their eyes wide, including Zhou Tanhua and Zhou Shaoxian. Such a domineering divine ability. Is this father's divine ability? Zhou Tanhua was extremely excited. His eyes were filled with admiration. Zhou Shaoxian was the same. They had always admired Zhou Xuanji, but Zhou Xuanji hadn't shown his true strength in front of them for a long time. This time they were shocked. His own son was already like this, let alone other creatures. Zhou Xuanji had subverted his image in the hearts of everyone with the delusion sword sea. He didn't notice any of this. Instead, he was staring at divine King Blacktime. Suddenly, the delusion sword sea contracted. With a flash of silver light, it gathered with divine King Blacktime as the center. This is divine King Blacktime was shocked. The exterminating divine light had already given him a fright. And now, the delusion sword sea made him feel the aura of death. He instinctively mobilized his space-time divine energy to resist. Boom! Divine King Blacktime disappeared along with the delusion sword sea. Endless divine energy poured into Zhou Xuanji's body, making him narrow his eyes. So cool. This guy has so much origin fusion divine energy, and it even contains the rules of space-time. What a huge experience bag. But this guy is definitely not dead. Zhou Xuanji glanced over. Wherever he looked, all the black shadows exploded and turned into ashes. The strengthening power of the suppression universe. Compressing space-time. With a single thought, he crushed the Blacktime's soul army. You're courting death. A furious voice came. Divine King Blacktime appeared behind Zhou Xuanji out of thin air. His 10,000-meter-tall body was so majestic that Zhou Xuanji looked tiny before one of his green eyes. Yu Sheng Chong Broken Sword and Previous Life Dream Realization Sword appeared in Zhou Xuanji's hands. With a contemptuous smile, he turned around and slashed with his sword. Chapter 8:18. The two swords turned into two rays of silver light and slashed out horizontally. Zhou Xuanji's expression was grave and stern, and the sword light burst forth. Divine King He Shi's 4 green eyes were blinded by the light, and he instinctively closed them. But at that moment, a black pillar of light descended like a meteor shower and drowned Zhou Xuanji. Inside, Zhou Xuanji sensed an extremely powerful corrosive power. Fortunately, his origin fusion divine power had absorbed the power of the war god, so he could resist this corrosive power. It really is the same as the chaotic tides of space and time. Where did this guy come from? Could it be that the passageway between the two worlds has already been opened? Zhou Xuanji frowned and thought of a ridiculous possibility. The anti-Kunlun wanted to annex the Kunlun Origin Court. If that was the case, then only the Kunlun Origin Court would be left. He couldn't help but think of the master of anti-Kunlun, which was his reverse body. Although that supreme martial artist looked exactly like him, he couldn't see through him at all. Little Sovereign once said that this supreme master was extraordinary, and he was probably one of the top 10 existences since ancient times. Compared to him, Zhou Fei was like a child. His methods were immature, his strength was insufficient, and he loved to spout nonsense. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself as he charged out of the black pillar of light. The suppression of the universe had been broken, and all the living beings in the universe had regained their mobility. They surrounded godly King Black Hour, not daring to move. You bunch of trash, only worthy to be devoured by this king. God King Blacktime bellowed angrily as he raised both his hands. 2 black pillars of light descended from above and landed in his palms. It was as if he had 2 heavenly constitutions in his hands, and his divine might was vast and mighty. A berserk might wreaked havoc in the Kunlun cosmos, suppressing all life. Everyone's breathing quickened as they widened their eyes. Is this his true strength? Why hasn't Zhou Xuanji appeared yet? Can we beat him? This guy feels more powerful than Zhou Xuanji. Even if we work together, we might not be able to defeat him. Since those super divine ranges aren't coming, let's not fight to the death anymore. The living beings discussed among themselves, and most of them wanted to form groups and escape from this battlefield. The Black Hour Soul army, slaughtering its way into the Kunlun Origin Court, had already attracted the attention of various powerful divine ranges. Even in this battle, it was unknown how many Almighties were secretly watching. Being a coward would definitely be ridiculed. Zhou Xuanji stepped out from the black pillar of light and looked at Divine King He Shi. He laughed and said, "You really know how to talk big. You keep saying that you want to devour the Origin Court. How long have you been in the Kunlun Origin Court? By the time you finish swallowing the Origin Court, the world will have changed? Billions of years?" Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed and turned to look at him. God King He Shi was enraged. This fellow actually dared to mock him. Damn it! Damn it! He immediately made his move. Countless black shadows rushed out from the black light in his palm. They danced chaotically and roared incessantly. Kill! All the living beings from the divine ranges who were participating in the battle shouted and cast their divine abilities. Zhou Xuanji did not attack, but looked at the two black beams of light in Divine King Dark Time's hands. These black shadows were all created at the last minute. Each of them was powerful, which Zhou Xuanji could not understand. The space-time turbulence had such an ability. The two armies engaged in a chaotic battle once again. Zhou Xuanji did not stop them because he wanted to give the Emperor's Sword Divine Range disciples a chance to train. As for Divine King He Shi, Zhou Xuanji had already figured out his strength. It was nothing. At least, he could not overthrow the Kunlun Origin Court. No wonder those super divine ranges were unmoved. To them, the Black Time Soul Army was just a smokescreen for the Dark Sovereign. Divine King He Shi walked toward Zhou Xuanji with the two black beams in his hands. He crossed the battlefield, and no one dared to stop him. Seeing that he was about to reach him, Zhou Xuanji fused the Yuansheng Broken Sword and the previous Life Dream Realization Sword into Life Slasher. Just when he was about to charge over, a strange energy appeared and enveloped his body. He glanced over and saw a black hole beside him. A pair of eyes could be vaguely seen in the black hole. Black Desire Divine Eyes. Zhou Fa. This brat attacked so quickly. A cold glint flashed in Zhou Xuanji's eyes as he slashed with his sword. Great Awareness Divine Slash. The sword chi was as long as a rainbow and slashed through the black hole as though it was going to cut the universe in half. Zhou Fa brushed past the sword chi and charged toward Zhou Xuanji with his claw. The two clashed quickly, and Zhou Xuanji blocked his claw with his sword. This guy's strength grew so much. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He was astonished. Zhou Fa was even more shocked. He knew that Zhou Xuanji had been reborn, but he had just received a great serendipity and was overflowing with confidence. He could not believe that his powerful claw was blocked by Zhou Xuanji's sword casually. How could it be? Boom! The silver sword light exploded and turned into a silver sea that engulfed Zhou Fa. Delusion, Sword Sea. Zhou Fa's expression changed. Two packs of black wolves flew out from his eyes. All of them were howling at the top of their lungs. They were filled with violence and murderous aura. Zhou Xuanji faced them head-on with an exterminating divine light. Two streams of violet light clashed with the pack of black wolves and exploded, shaking the universe. Zhou Fa did not panic. He turned into countless duplicates and charged at the Delusion Sword Sea. Just when the two were locked in a fierce battle, everyone and Divine King He Shi also began fighting. Strangely, after Zhou Fa appeared, Divine King He Shi did not walk toward Zhou Xuanji. It seemed that Zhou Fa and Divine King He Shi might have some connection. Zhou Xuanji thought as he fought. No matter how many divine abilities Zhou Fa had, he could not block a single slash from him. Zhou Fa's way of the sword had already reached perfection. No matter how high his cultivation was, he would never forget to practice the sword. So each of his slashes was filled with profundity, like all kinds of divine abilities. His delusion Sword C was purposely broken by Zhou Fa. He wanted to see Zhou Fa's full power. At the same time, he wanted to force the existence behind Zhou Fa to show himself. Damn, Zhou Fa was furious. No matter how powerful he became, he still could not gain the upper hand against Zhou Xuanji. This feeling, it made him feel helpless and angry at the same time. Why? Why was he inferior to Zhou Xuanji? Die! He roared furiously. His eyes widened, and the black desire divine eyes turned into two black vortexes that absorbed everything in the universe. Zhou Xuanji relied on the exterminating divine light to resist. The silver light clashed with the black vortex, but was not absorbed. Instead, it penetrated the vortex forcefully and enveloped Zhou Fa. Zhou Fa could not move at all. Zhou Xuanji's life slasher landed on his neck. "What are you going to do now?" he asked with a condescending smile. Zhou Fa's furious face suddenly turned into a strange smile. A black silhouette appeared behind Zhou Xuanji. He raised his right hand and grabbed towards Zhou Xuanji. His palm was much bigger than Zhou Xuanji's head. He could easily grab Zhou Xuanji's head with one hand. Zhou Xuanji's body swayed, and he teleported hundreds of meters away. He turned around and looked over with a dark expression. This aura, he could not help but feel a chill down his spine. He stared at the black silhouette in shock. The darkness sovereign. Why did this guy appear here? Shouldn't he still be trying to break the seal? Could Zhou Fa be one of the darkness sovereign's chess pieces? Just when Zhou Xuanji was lost in his thoughts, Zhou Fa flew to the side of the black silhouette and said with a sinister smile, "Zhou Xuanji, are you afraid now?" Just when he finished speaking, numerous silhouettes tore open the space and stepped out. Mortal Sovereign, Luan Pinnacle, Namitiani, Origin Courts, 12 Law Ancestors, and so on. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 819. One by one, the powerful cultivators tore the space apart and stepped out, surrounding Zhou Fa. The twisted smile on Zhou Fa's face suddenly froze. Terrifying killing intent surrounded him from all directions, making him unable to move. He felt like he was in a cold cellar. Damn it, these guys, Zhou Fa was shocked and angry. Before, these powerful cultivators didn't come out. But when Sovereign Darkness gave him the power, they all jumped out again. At this moment, he felt like he was being played. Luan Feng smiled contemptuously and said, "Sure enough, you have something going on with Sovereign Darkness. Silly kid, he is using you. When he completely breaks the seal, you'll be the first poor guy to die in his hands." The other powerful cultivators looked cold. Their eyes were all focused on the black shadow behind Zhou Fa. In the distance, all living beings were still fighting with the Black Time Soul Army. When they saw the powerful cultivators appear, they were all pleasantly surprised. What a powerful aura. They seemed to be the range masters of the super divine ranges. That's Namitiani of the Tiani divine range, the range master of the sovereign range. Hiss! They are all the range masters of the super divine ranges. Each of them is ridiculously strong. This time, we are going to turn the tables. Why didn't they appear earlier? Is it because of that black shadow? Are they using us as bait? Hold on, victory is in sight. The living beings discussed excitedly while fighting, cheering each other on. Zhou Xuanji's eyes were locked on the black shadow behind Zhou Fa. Could it be that the sovereign master Zhou Fa mentioned is Sovereign Darkness? But that's not right. Zhou Fa and Origin Court War God were not on good terms. When he revealed Origin Court War God's identity to him, his expression and tone didn't seem to be fake. Zhou Xuanji frowned, pondering over the doubts in this. "Kill him. Don't talk nonsense anymore," a tall old man said. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and waved it forcefully. The golden beam of light turned into a torrent, sweeping over and reaching Zhou Fa in the blink of an eye. The black shadow behind Zhou Fa suddenly wrapped around him. His aura skyrocketed. With a shake of his shoulder, he blocked the golden torrent, shaking it away. Huh? Namatiani's eyes widened as he cried out in surprise. The other powerful cultivators were also shocked. They knew that the Black Shadow was the power of sovereign darkness. But they didn't expect the Black Shadow to be able to fuse with Zhou Fa instantly. This power seemed to belong to Zhou Fa. Zhou Fa grinned and said coldly, "Since you're heartless, don't blame me for being cruel." He raised his arms, and a steady stream of black gas flowed out. It was like a thick fog that covered the sky, and it engulfed all the mighty figures at lightning speed. Zhou Xuanji quickly backed away from the black mist. Since the Almighties had already appeared, there was naturally no need for him to make a move. He turned his gaze to the universe battlefield behind him. The disciples of the Emperor Sword Divine range were fighting in groups. Their Saint Realm cultivators were no match for a single Black Shadow. Fortunately, the Kunlun Origin Court had many creatures participating in the battle. Their numbers were far greater than that of the Black Hour Soul Army. Zhou Xuanji turned around and observed the battle quietly, just in case the Emperor Sword Divine range disciples died. God King Black Hour turned his gaze towards him. His 4 green eyes flashed with a cold light, filled with bone-piercing, killing intent. Zhou Xuanji smiled disdainfully and ignored him. He did not want to be the main character in this war. He only wanted to watch the disciples of the Emperor Sword Divine range grow. As for the Dark Supremes, he would leave them to the Almighties to deal with. A deafening roar came from behind him. Zhou Xuanji did not need to look back to feel the powerful aura. The Kunlun universe was shaken. Zhou Fa was not at a disadvantage despite being besieged by so many powerful figures. Instead, he grew stronger as the battle went on. The Dark Supremes were extremely powerful. Billowing black gas wrapped around Zhou Fa, making him look like an ancient evil demon. One could only see his silhouette, but not his face. Their battlefield continued to expand. In just a short while, it had already covered millions of miles of space. Sovereign Hong Chun did not make a move. He was observing Zhou Fa. No one knew what he was thinking. Zhou Xuanji walked toward God King Black Hour. God King Black Hour's strength was unique on the battlefield. He was killing every second. For the Emperor's Sword Divine range, he was an undefeatable enemy. Zhou Xuanji planned to kill him and leave the rest of the Black Hour Soul Army for everyone to train. But he was not sure if the Black Hour Soul Army would still exist if the Black Hour Soul Army died. Seeing Zhou Xuanji walking over, God King Black Hour immediately turned into a beam of black light and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. "This time, I will destroy you." God King Black Hour's roar exploded in Zhou Xuanji's ears as he appeared on Zhou Xuanji's left out of nowhere. This time, he was only 6 meters tall. Although he was not as big as his original body, he was still huge compared to Zhou Xuanji. 2 black scythes emerged from his back and slashed toward Zhou Xuanji from both sides. Boom! A silver radiance burst forth. A violent sword chi exploded and dispersed the 2 black scythes. Even God King Black Hour was destroyed. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Xuanji jumped out of this universe. He came to the space between reality and illusion. In the darkness, he immediately caught sight of God King Black Hour. The space between the universe was the chaotic flow of time and space. Void and reality could only be achieved without being bound by rules. The hardest to achieve was the space between reality and illusion. It was hard to distinguish between reality and illusion, just like Kunlun Origin Court and Anti-Kunlun. The channel between the 2 worlds was a higher realm between reality and illusion. Zhou Xuanji had identified that God King Black Hour was related to the chaotic flow of time and space. So, every time God King Black Hour disappeared, he would come to the space between reality and illusion. As expected, God King Black Hour was shocked by Zhou Xuanji's sudden appearance. How did this guy find his way here? Although the exterminating divine eyes were powerful, they could not be this powerful. Zhou Xuanji raised his sword and slashed. Primordial Chaos Sword Shadow. Tens of billions of sword shadows appeared out of nowhere and surrounded God King Black Hour, leaving him no way to escape. Zhou Xuanji's eyes sparkled as he used suppressing the universe again. As he walked forward, sword shadows appeared one after another and landed under his feet like a staircase of light, paving the way for him. God King Black Hour was suppressed by suppressing the universe and could hardly move. The sword shadows around him made him shudder. Now that he was in his original body, if he was killed by Zhou Xuanji, he would die for sure. What do you want to say? Zhou Xuanji asked with a smile that did not seem like a smile. If it were someone else, it would be very difficult to find God King Black Hour. But Zhou Xuanji had the exalted physique and was extremely sensitive to space and time. He could clearly sense God King Black Hour's whereabouts. God King Black Hour asked with a deep voice, "Do you know that there are 2 Kunlun origin courts?" Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and did not reply. God King Black Hour continued to speak. "You think we are the lackeys of the Dark Sovereign? Then you have underestimated the Kunlun origin court. The Dark Sovereign is not the only one eyeing the Kunlun origin court. Your Kunlun origin court is bound to fall. Rather than a mantis trying to stop a chariot, why don't you join us? This king will let you and your divine reign survive. How about that?" Zhou Xuanji wanted to laugh and said, "I can kill you now. Why do you have to say that you are protecting me?" God King Black Hour was so furious that he almost exploded. "I know the whereabouts of your Dark Sovereign. He left because he felt that he could not protect your Kunlun origin court." God King Black Hour continued to speak. His voice sounded like he was gnashing his teeth. Chapter 820. Oh, is there any other information? This bit of information can't save your life. Zhou Xuanji said with a mocking smile. He didn't care why the current sovereign disappeared. Some people said that supremacy was killed by Origin Court War God. Now, the Dark Time Deity King said that Ji Zun retreated because he felt that he was not strong enough. Regardless of the possibility, Zhou Xuanji was not interested. In any case, he was going to be the next supreme martial artist. God King Black Time fell silent, feeling bewildered. Why did it feel like this guy knew everything? If that's the case, why didn't he kill me? God King Black Time racked his brains. He did not wish to die. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes as the soul source orb suddenly protruded from his glabella. The soul source orb immediately radiated a black light and sucked divine King Heishur into it. Everything happened so quickly that godly monarch Black Time was unable to react in time. From how he saw it, he could not escape, so he concentrated on thinking of ways to persuade Zhou Xuanji. He did not expect Zhou Xuanji to act so coldly. Falling into the soul source bead, no matter how great the divine King Black Time's abilities were, he could forget about escaping. Zhou Xuanji laughed condescendingly and was about to leave. At this moment, suddenly, he felt a strong sense of danger coming at him. The speed was extremely fast, and the target was his back. The tens of billions of sword shadows suddenly fell from the sky and formed a sword net behind him. Bang! A ray of black light pierced through the net of swords and was about to hit Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji's body shined with a silver radiance, and numerous sword souls appeared around him. Layer by layer, they formed into tall silver walls that blocked the black light once again. This time, he finally blocked the black light. When he turned around, the black light dissipated and a figure appeared. Zhou Fa. No. Zhou Xuanji's pupils contracted, and his expression changed instantly. This person looked exactly like him, but his expression was not as ferocious as Zhou Fa's. His eyes were also very clear. Anti-Kunlun supremacy. Why is this guy here? Was the Black Hour Soul Army really sent by him? The Supreme Being's body was within the black aura, and he smiled very strangely. He opened his mouth and said, "My reverse body, we meet again. You almost died just now." With his abilities, how could Zhou Xuanji survive a sneak attack? Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and asked, "What do you want? How did the anti-Kunlun supremacy come here? Could it be that this fellow had been following him in the passageway between the two worlds?" At the thought of this, Zhou Xuanji frowned even more, and a chill ran down his spine. What do you want? Once you become a supreme being, you'll understand. However, I'm sorry, but you won't have the chance to become a supreme being. If you want to live, I advise you not to care about anything else. In the future, I'll let you live. The sovereign looked at Zhou Xuanji with a mocking smile. He was like a completely different person from his reserved and calm self. At this moment, he became a true supreme being, looking down on all life, overlooking the 10,000 worlds. There was no existence that could enter his eyes. Zhou Xuanji fell silent. He did not believe that the other party was willing to let him live. There must be some reason why Ji Zun did not dare to make a move against him. Who would want to face their other self for a long time? I became the Sword Emperor in the Kunlun Origin Court. What about you? Was he also a Sword Emperor? Regardless, the real Sword Emperor is about to descend upon Anti-Kunlun. When you return, tell all living beings to wash their necks and wait for my sword. The sovereign laughed arrogantly. With a wave of his right hand, Zhou Xuanji felt an unstoppable force coming at him. He broke through the space and fell back into the Kunlun universe. Zhou Xuanji quickly stabilized his body as the space-time crack disappeared. He fixed his eyes on it, but could not see the sovereign's figure. Sword Emperor. I will tell you who the real Sword Emperor is, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself, his eyes sparkling. From then on, he regarded the anti-Kunlun sovereign as the Sword Emperor. After defeating the Sword Emperor, he would be the one and only Sword Emperor. Namatiani came to his side and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with you? Where did you go just now?" Zhou Xuanji looked back and saw that the battle was over. Zhou Fa was nowhere to be seen. The Black Hour Soul Army had also disappeared. Everyone who participated in the battle was resting. Mortal Sovereign and Luan Pinnacle had already left, leaving only a few powerful cultivators in this universe. Zhou Xuanji told them about the Sword Emperor's attack, but he did not explain his relationship with the Sword Emperor. Anti-Kunlun Sovereign. Sword Emperor. Namatiani's expression changed drastically. Fear filled his eyes. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "You Sovereign Divine Ranges and Super Divine Ranges should have a good discussion. I should go back too." After that, he flew toward the Emperor Sword Divine Range disciples. He had absorbed a massive amount of Black Hour Deity King's divine energy in this battle. He could go into closed-door cultivation for some time after returning. Namatiani was still in a daze. Doesn't that mean that two sovereigns are going to attack the Kunlun Origin Court? Namatiani's scalp turned numb when he thought of this. The strength of the sovereign was extremely horrifying. Even if all living beings worked together, they would not be able to deal with him. In the past, they could only suppress the Dark Sovereign by relying on the sovereigns and other powerful cultivators. But now, the Kunlun Origin Court had no sovereign, and they still had to withstand the attack of the anti-Kunlun sovereign. Even Namutiani, who had experienced countless storms, was terrified. Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand and sucked all the disciples into his surroundings. Then, he wrapped them in Origin Fusion Divine energy and flew toward the Emperor's Sword Divine range. Along the way, Zhou Xuanji's face was gloomy and he did not speak. The other disciples followed behind him. They did not notice him and were discussing excitedly. Although this battle did not last long, they had all participated in it. The battle with the Black Hour Soul Army was thrilling and very exciting. Now that they thought about it, their blood was still boiling. "My stupid brother, look, it's all thanks to me saving you," Zhou Shaoxian said with a proud smile. Hearing this, Zhou Tanhua shook his head helplessly. The truth was that he had the confidence to deal with that demon. He just deliberately let the other party sneak attack him. But in the end, it was ruined by Zhou Shaoxian. Zhou Tanhua didn't tell the truth. Even if he did, Zhou Shaoxian wouldn't believe him. In any case, he was still very excited. Such a war was really exciting. Thinking of how his father used to fight alone, he became even more excited. One day, he would be as powerful and fearless as Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji was at the forefront. He was still thinking about the Sword Emperor. He didn't feel despair. On the contrary, he felt that this was a good thing. The Sword Emperor and the Dark Sovereign both wanted the Kunlun Origin Court. The two were bound to fight. Of course, it was also possible that they would join forces. However, Zhou Xuanji was an ambitious person. One mountain cannot have two tigers. Both the Sword Emperor and the Dark Sovereign were arrogant and invincible existences. How could they tolerate each other's existence? He took out the Lesser Supreme Sword and told Little Sovereign about the current situation through voice transmission. What? The Sovereign of Anti-Kunlun came to the Kunlun Origin Court? Are you kidding me? Little Sovereign's shocked voice reached his ears. His voice was trembling a little. Zhou Xuanji's heart sank when he heard this. Could it be that Little Sovereign is also afraid? Chapter 821. After returning to the Emperor's Sword Divine range, Zhou Xuanji directly chose to go into seclusion. He didn't spread the news of the Sword Emperor to avoid causing panic. The tribulation of sovereign darkness had already made the Emperor's Sword Divine range uneasy. What would happen if Zhou Xuanji, the anti-sovereign, was added to the mix? Two sovereigns attacking the Kunlun Origin Court without any sovereigns. There was almost no suspense. Inside the cultivation palace, Zhou Xuanji was sitting cross-legged with Little Sovereign hovering beside him. On the way back, Little Sovereign was very excited. He kept saying that it was impossible. In his opinion, it was impossible for the anti-Kunlun sovereign to cross into the Kunlun Origin Court. Such a thing had never happened since ancient times. This was already an unwritten rule. Can you calm down a little? It has already happened. What should I do next? What about the Kunlun Origin Court? Zhou Xuanji asked in a deep voice. This little sovereign was usually very confident. Why did he lose his composure at such a critical moment? Little Sovereign's soul emerged from a blade. He crossed his arms in front of his chest. His face was ashen. Anti-Kunlun sovereign, sovereign darkness. This is an unprecedented tribulation. Even if you become the sovereign now, it will be difficult for you to defeat them, Little Sovereign said, gritting his teeth. Little Sovereign gnashed his teeth. He believed that Zhou Xuanji's talent was very strong and unparalleled. But the Sword Emperor was Zhou Xuanji. Their talents were the same. In such a situation, with the addition of a terrifying sovereign darkness, how could they fight? Zhou Xuanji angrily said, "You speak as if you can make me the sovereign now." Little Sovereign sighed and said, "It seems that we are really going to die. You have no way to deal with the current situation unless the anti-Kunlun sovereign and sovereign darkness fight. What I'm most afraid of is that the anti-Kunlun supremacy arrives first, slaughters the Kunlun Origin Court, and then fights the darkness supremacy. At that time, no matter how hard they fight, we will all be annihilated." Also, he said that he would protect your life, but in fact, he can't kill you. No living being can kill their own reincarnation, but they can test others to do it. Can't kill my own incarnation? Zhou Xuanji immediately understood. It seemed that the Sword Emperor was stalling. He wanted to make him relax his vigilance and then find an opportunity to kill him. When the Sword Emperor sneak attacked him, he clearly felt the murderous aura. Zhou Xuanji frowned and began thinking about how to deal with the Sword Emperor. Don't think about it. He doesn't have a way to kill you for the time being, otherwise he wouldn't have delayed it. I guess he is still preparing for something, or is afraid of something, so he didn't show up in person. He deliberately used your mouth to announce his appearance to the Kunlun Origin Court. Just a bluff. Little Sovereign shook his head. Then, he changed the topic and said with a playful smile, "Maybe he's afraid of your little wife, Hong Chen Supreme." Back then, Zhou Xuanji had told him about Shun Tang. Back then, he was shocked too. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and asked, "Can mortal sovereign defeat the Sword Emperor?" Shun Tang had never truly become a supreme martial artist. She was just a self-proclaimed supreme martial artist. Otherwise, she wouldn't have needed to join hands with the almighties of the Kunlun Origin Court to deal with the Darkness Sovereign. She can't, but she can at least pose a threat. She has already reached the peak of the mortal god realm, and can be considered half a step away from being a supreme. She's really strong. Little Sovereign clicked his tongue in wonder. Every time he thought of Supreme Hong Chun, he would sigh with emotion. Space-time causality was really magical. Who would have thought that the little girl who had been cultivating with Zhou Xuanji back then could cultivate to such a level? Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow and stopped talking. After talking for a long time, he could only wait. He didn't like this feeling at all. He put the lesser supreme sword aside and began to cultivate seriously. Little Sovereign floated next to him with a smile on his face. He thought to himself, "This kid is getting more and more interesting. I didn't expect the Sword Emperor to want to cross the distance between the two worlds to kill him. What heights can he reach in the future?" In a dim palace, Zhou Fei was meditating on the throne, healing his injuries and cultivating. A cloud of black qi was coiling around his body like a dragon and phoenix. The Sword Emperor suddenly appeared in the palace, looking at him with a faint smile. Noticing his gaze, Zhou Fei suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. "What are you doing here?" Zhou Fei asked with a vigilant look on his face. He looked nervous. He was afraid that the exterminating divine eyes would sweep over him. The corner of the Sword Emperor's mouth rose as he asked with a smile, "What's your relationship with the darkness, Sovereign?" Hearing this, Zhou Fei's face sank and said, "It's none of your business. You and I have already broken off our relationship. If you don't get lost, I will kill you." Hua! A gust of cold wind blew against Zhou Fei's face, and he felt his vision go black. Immediately after, he was grabbed by the neck by the sword arch and lifted into the air. The sword thearch's eyes were cold, and he said in a cold voice, "You want to kill me? Are you worthy of me? Even if you don't say it, I can guess that the power in your body belongs to me." After saying that, the Sword Emperor raised his left hand and gently pulled out a black aura from Zhou Fei's body. Ah! Zhou Fei felt extreme pain and screamed in pain. "Zhou Xuanji, you will die a horrible death. You will die a horrible death," he screamed at the top of his lungs. The skin on his face suddenly split open and blood flowed freely. The Sword Emperor collected the black aura into his palm and casually tossed it. Zhou Fei crashed into the wall and fell to the ground in a sorry state. "You don't deserve my looks," the Sword Arch said coldly. Two lumps of green flames flew out of his eyes and instantly landed on Zhou Fei's face. Zhou Fei screamed again, clutching his face as he rolled on the ground. At this moment, his divine power had been completely drained, and he had lost all of his stamina. He was like a mortal, unable to resist at all. The Sword Emperor looked down at the black aura in his palm with a contemptuous smile and murmured, "Dark Sovereign, you are not worthy to compete with me. In the Kunlun Origin Court, you can't compete with me. In this anti-Kunlun, you can't compete with me either." After saying that, he disappeared into thin air, leaving Zhou Fei rolling on the ground and screaming. Half a year passed quickly. After absorbing the divine power of Black Time Deity King, Zhou Xuanji failed to break through to Origin Fusion Divine, Lord Level 3. He came out of seclusion and wandered around the divine range, observing the cultivation of his disciples. The news of the Sword Emperor's attack didn't spread in the Kunlun Origin Court. However, after the Black Time Soul Army was destroyed, all the divine ranges became peaceful. The Kunlun universe fell into a strange calm. It felt like a storm was coming. Zhou Xuanji strolled in the air as he looked down. Suddenly, Zhou Tanhua flew over. "Father, I don't feel right." He came up to Zhou Xuanji and said, gritting his teeth. Zhou Xuanji looked at him, and his expression immediately changed. Zhou Tanhua's eyes were glowing with purple light as purple runes flowed out from his eye sockets, twisting slightly as if they were alive. Zhou Xuanji immediately probed his eyes with his divine will. Boom! Zhou Xuanji's divine will exploded. He couldn't see anything. "You are the sovereign. You are." A majestic and domineering voice resounded in his mind. The tone was angry and firm. Immediately afterward, Zhou Xuanji retracted his divine will. He opened his eyes and saw that Zhou Tanhua was still looking at him anxiously. "Who was talking just now?" Zhou Xuanji asked with a frown. He shook his head, a little absent-minded. Zhou Tianhua asked hesitantly, "Is there anyone else besides us?" Chapter 822. Zhou Tianhua looked around nervously. This familiar Emperor Sword Divine range made him very uneasy at the moment. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and asked, "How did this happen to you?" Just now, when he used his spiritual will to probe Zhou Tianhua's eyes, he felt a strong backlash, which surprised him. Could it be that his son's exterminating divine eyes contained a great power that even he did not know about? "I've been cultivating all this while, and just as I was about to break through to the Tao ancestor level, I encountered such an unforeseen event," Zhou Tianhua said gloomily, making Zhou Xuanji's brow jump. This kid was breaking through to become a Tao father. Although he had expected this day, he did not expect it to come so soon. He asked, "How do you feel now? Does it hurt?" Zhou Tianhua took a deep breath and said, "It doesn't hurt, but I feel that my eyes contain a very strong power that will gush out at any time. This feeling is very comfortable, but it makes me very uneasy." He was most aware of the changes in his body. Although his strength was increasing, it had not reached the point where it could be unleashed. The sudden burst of power made him feel that it was not a good thing. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. He hesitated for a moment before he once again probed Zhou Tianhua's eyes with his divine will. Boom! Zhou Xuanji's divine sense was impacted again, causing him to fall into a daze. This kind of trance came and went quickly. He quickly recovered and opened his eyes to see that he was above a group of volcanoes. Beneath the black clouds, flames filled the air, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. He subconsciously lowered his head to look, and within the sea of fire that covered the mountains and plains, there were figures galloping as fast as ghosts. "What are those?" Zhou Xuanji was confused. Just when he was about to fly down, the sea of flames changed suddenly. The sea of flames transformed into a horrifying face and roared soundlessly at Zhou Xuanji. Although the face was blurry, it gave him a familiar feeling. Déjà vu. Just as he was about to take a closer look, he suddenly retracted his divine sense. When he opened his eyes again, he had returned to reality. "Father, what did you see?" Zhou Tianhua asked with a worried look. Zhou Xuanji comforted. "It's nothing. I just saw another world. I think your exterminating divine eyes are evolving. Don't worry." He didn't sense any danger, which meant that the power wouldn't harm anyone. "What world?" Zhou Tianhua asked, his eyes fixed on his father. Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand and projected the scene he saw between the two of them. The huge face made Zhou Tianhua's complexion change dramatically. "What? You've seen him before?" Zhou Xuanji asked with narrowed eyes. Could it be that Zhou Tianhua had met someone while he was away? Or perhaps he had obtained some fortuitous encounters? Zhou Tianhua took a deep breath and said, "I often dream about him. Perhaps he is my inner demon." On the path of cultivation, one would encounter all sorts of inner demons, but he had yet to encounter one. Perhaps this was his first inner demon. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. He felt that it was not an inner demon, but a sign. Go back and rest for a while. Wait for your eyes to calm down before continuing your cultivation. Don't be too hasty, understand? Zhou Xuanji exhorted. Upon hearing this, Zhou Tianhua nodded and turned around to leave. Looking at his petite figure, Zhou Xuanji frowned again. Zhou Tianhua had always maintained the appearance of a teenager. Even if he was very mature, in the eyes of Zhou Xuanji and the others, he would always be a child. As a father, Zhou Xuanji could not let his son be in danger. He returned to the cultivation hall, took out the Lesser Supreme Sword, and summoned Little Supreme Sword. What is it this time? Had the Sword Emperor and the Darkness Sovereign come to fight? Then, let's just wait for death. Little Sovereign clamored in an impatient tone. Zhou Xuanji glared at him, and then told him about Zhou Tianhua's abnormality. "Oh, hasn't he already inherited the perfect state of your exterminating divine eyes? It's impossible for him to evolve again unless there is another force that doesn't belong to him transforming him," Little Sovereign said in a deep voice. Little Sovereign muttered, his eyes flickering. So many things had happened recently. Zhou Tanhua's abnormality was obviously not a coincidence. Someone was plotting against him. Little Sovereign continued. It seems that we can't just sit and wait for death. I remember you saying that you were a soul guardian, right? Zhou Xuanji nodded, waiting for his next words. Devour the soul source pool and transform you into the soul source pool. At that time, your luck will be connected to the Kunlun origin court. The stronger the Kunlun origin court, the stronger you will be. At the same time, you can see every corner of the Kunlun origin court with the help of the soul source pool. Little Sovereign said with a sinister smile, Don't worry. Even if the Kunlun origin court is destroyed, it won't affect you. As long as the Kunlun origin court becomes stronger, it will affect you. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. Is there such a good thing? How can I not believe it? However, the other party is a sovereign after all. He shouldn't be bragging. After thinking about it, he left the Emperor's sword divine range with the lesser supreme sword and flew upward. Mortal Plane, Xian Xianghua, was sitting in front of Mortal Sovereign with a nervous look on her face. Mortal Sovereign stood upright, looking into the void as he faintly said, A great tribulation is coming, and it is a great tribulation beyond this sovereign's expectations. Are you ready to become a mortal god? Xian Xianghua nodded and replied, I'm ready at any time. Her voice was trembling a little. Once she became a mortal god, she would have hope of chasing after Mortal Sovereign. How powerful was Mortal Sovereign? He was the strongest under the Sovereign. In her heart, Zhou Xuanji would definitely become the Sovereign. Since that was the case, she would become the strongest under the Sovereign. Next, I will use the mortal chi to temper your body. This process will be a bit long, but it will make you change subtly, Mortal Sovereign said with a nod. As soon as he finished speaking, strands of red dust chi surged from all directions and entered Xian Xianghua's body. Xian Xianghua also closed her eyes, waiting for the mortal chi. Outside the mortal plane, Luan Feng paced back and forth in the void impatiently. A red silhouette flew out. It was Mortal Sovereign's clone. What's the matter? Mortal Sovereign asked in a cold tone. Luan Feng gritted his teeth and said, I can no longer divine the future of Kunlun Origin Court. Dark Sovereign might not be our biggest enemy. Mortal Sovereign was surprised and asked, What do you mean? Just when Luan Feng was about to answer, an air-piercing sound came. Pshhhh. A black sword pierced through Luan Feng's throat. No blood splashed, but his expression froze instantly. Mortal Sovereign waved his hand, and thousands of mortal chi shot out like a massive red wall. Streaks of sword chi shot out from the darkness, shattering the huge red wall. Black swords flew over and converged into a long black bridge. The Sword Emperor came on the sword bridge. His black robe fluttered in the wind. He had an imposing appearance, and his eyes were filled with a conceited smile. The slight smile on his lips made him look so arrogant. How come it's you? Mortal Sovereign cried out in shock. She couldn't believe her eyes. She recognized at a glance that the Sword Emperor was not Zhou Xuanji, but the anti-Kunlun Sovereign. The Sword Emperor smiled contemptuously and said, Why can't it be me? Little girl, you are much stronger than before. Unfortunately, you are not the Sovereign. Trying to forcibly reverse the fate of the Origin Court is simply courting death. Chapter 823. Sovereign Hong Chun was unable to remain calm while facing the Sword Emperor. In the anti-Kunlun, when she faced the Sword Emperor, she was like an ant looking at the sky. She could only feel her own insignificance. Now, even though she had become a mortal exalt, she still felt extremely uneasy when facing the Sword Emperor. Humph! This is not your turf. Supremacy Hong Chun snorted coldly and raised her right hand. The aura of the mortal world swirled around and condensed into a huge red wheel that spun at high speed toward the Sword Emperor. The red wheel rapidly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, it was over 1,000,000 miles in diameter, as if it was about to swallow the entire universe. The Sword Emperor's eyes turned cold, and a sword light appeared, directly destroying the red turntable. She took a step forward and arrived in front of Supremacy Hongshan. Two beams of violet light shot out from her eyes. Just as they were about to envelop Supremacy Hongshan, she suddenly vanished. You're not qualified to devour the Kunlun Origin Court. Just you wait, we'll definitely be the ones who have the last laugh. Supreme Hong Chen's cold voice sounded in the Sword Emperor's ears. At the same time, the chakra that was pierced through his throat also disappeared. The Sword Arch raised his brows slightly and muttered, "Interesting." He teleported away in an instant and even brought his independent plane with him. He shook his head and smiled. His smile was filled with contempt. He turned into a cloud of black gas and flew forward, disappearing without a trace. Between reality and illusion, Sovereign Hong Chun and Luan Feng appeared. Luan Feng's expression was extremely ugly. The bloody hole in his throat had yet to heal, and blood flowed down from the hole, dyeing his clothes red. Is he really the sovereign of Anti-Kunlun? Luan Feng gritted his teeth and asked. Actually, he wasn't asking, he was just expressing his fear. When he learned that Zhou Xuanji had the inverse chaos divine ability, he knew that the sovereign of Anti-Kunlun was Zhou Xuanji's clone. But he didn't expect that the sovereign could come to the Kunlun Origin Court. This was the first time he had heard of such a shocking matter. Autar Crimson Dust took a deep breath and said, "Prepare to receive your tribulation." She left after saying that. Luan Feng didn't chase after him. Instead, he pondered on the spot. Before the Dark Sovereign could charge in, the Anti-Kunlun Sovereign had already descended. However, that guy didn't directly declare war on the Kunlun Origin Court. He probably had other plans. He had to get to the bottom of this. Luan Feng suddenly thought of Zhou Xuanji, and his eyes brightened. He immediately flew towards the Emperor's Sword Divine range. In the Cultivation Palace, Zhou Xuanji was observing Zhou Tanhua with his exterminating divine eyes. Ever since Zhou Tanhua had a problem with his eyes, he had been worried. Therefore, he didn't forget to keep an eye on his son while practicing. Fortunately, nothing had happened to this brat. His cultivation was increasing at an even faster rate. It was really strange. Stop looking. Your son is not simple at all. If it wasn't for you, he might have been able to become a supreme being. Little Sovereign floated next to him and chuckled with a playful smile on his face. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at him and said unpleasantly, "You make it sound like I'm blocking his way. With your talent, there is no one more suitable than you to become a supreme being. He is the same. It is very difficult for two heavenly geniuses like you to appear in the same era, let alone father and son." Little Sovereign fanned the flames with a strange look in his eyes. He wasn't joking, he really thought so. Zhou Tanhua hadn't experienced any great storms, nor had he received the guidance of a great expert. He didn't even have an illustrious past life. Even so, his cultivation had been advancing by leaps and bounds. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and asked, "Do you think the Sword Emperor and the Dark Sovereign will target my son? Especially the Sword Emperor." How powerful was the Sword Emperor? He was an invincible existence in the Kunlun Origin Court. The smile on Little Sovereign's face instantly disappeared when he heard this. But on second thought, it was indeed possible. The Sword Emperor had no children. Zhou Xuanji's son was like his own son. However, as a sovereign, how could it be easy for him to have a son? What is the Sword Emperor planning? From today onwards, I will slaughter the Kunlun Origin Court in the name of the Sword Emperor. I will destroy a divine range every day until all the divine ranges are destroyed. If you want to linger at death's door, hand over 10,000 heavenly geniuses with 15-star aptitude and 3,000 yuanying with the Origin Court's rules. I will not stop killing even one less. The Sword Emperor's voice suddenly resounded throughout the Kunlun Origin Court. His voice shocked all living beings. The expressions of Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign drastically changed. They thought that the Sword Emperor was plotting something and would continue to wait. Little Sovereign suddenly thought of something and cried out in alarm, "Not good." So that's how it is. He actually wants to swallow the rules of the Kunlun Origin Court. He wants to break through to a higher realm beyond the sovereign. Is he crazy? If he does this, he will most likely die. A higher realm beyond the sovereign. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. Although he didn't understand that realm, he also understood that once all the rules were controlled by the Sword Emperor, the Kunlun Origin Court was likely to collapse. All living beings would perish along with it. Suddenly, a terrifying explosion reverberated. Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign were taken aback. They subconsciously swept the Kunlun universe with their divine senses. They saw a divine range in the Kunlun universe explode, bursting with a dazzling light that illuminated the entire Kunlun universe. A violent pressure raged across the universe. The surrounding divine ranges trembled violently, as if they would collapse at any time. This guy, Little Sovereign, gnashed his teeth. He was a little annoyed. Why didn't I see through the Sword Emperor's ambition back then? The Sword Emperor must have come to the Kunlun Origin Court through Zhou Xuanji. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed he became. Zhou Xuanji was also thinking about it. The Kunlun Origin Court had tens of thousands of divine ranges. In other words, it could last for decades. However, it would be bad if the Sword Emperor came to the Sword Emperor divine range one day. At the same time, the entire Kunlun Origin Court was in an uproar. Everyone was in a panic as they discussed this matter. Sword Emperor? Is it Zhou Xuanji? No, Zhou Xuanji isn't that strong. It's Zhou Xuanji. I have heard of this voice. Impossible. Why did he do this? Which divine range was destroyed? Is he crazy? Most creatures had watched the superstar competition. They remembered Zhou Xuanji's voice or knew Zhou Xuanji's Sword Emperor name. For a moment, all the divine ranges were dispatched to find out the situation. In the end, they were attacked by the Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor was sitting in meditation before the destroyed divine range. He opened his eyes as his sword chi raged, killing hundreds of millions of creatures effortlessly. He looked exactly like Zhou Xuanji, confirming the rumor that the Sword Emperor was Zhou Xuanji. The Qiani divine range suddenly announced the existence of the anti-Kunlun, causing an uproar. On this day, Zhou Shaoxian and Zhou Tanhua found Zhou Xuanji. She excitedly asked, "Father, the Sword Emperor is your reincarnation. Can he protect us? Didn't he help you before?" She was naturally excited to have a supreme as her father. Zhou Xuanji glared at her and said, "What? You want to recognize him as your father? Why don't you try to find him and see if he will kill you?" Zhou Shaoxian curled her lips and said, "I'm just kidding. We came to you because we have a plan." Zhou Xuanji asked in surprise, "You have a plan in your head?" Chapter 824. Of course. You look down on me. Zhou Shaoxian screamed indignantly like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Zhou Tanhua couldn't help but cover his mouth and snicker. Seeing how angry she was, Zhou Xuanji said helplessly, "Then tell me, what plan do you have? This girl never grew up. What kind of strategy could she come up with?" "Father, with Ji Zun's ability, how could he not be able to find the person he wants? He's forcing the Kunlun Origin Court, causing internal strife in the Kunlun Origin Court. One must know that those geniuses are the treasures of each divine range. As long as a divine range hands them over and the other divine ranges refuse, it will definitely be the beginning of internal strife." Zhou Shaoxian shook her head and said with a look of a strategist. Zhou Xuanji raised his hand and smacked her head. He then looked at Zhou Tanhua and asked, "Tell me, what's the plan?" As soon as he heard this, he understood that it wasn't Zhou Shaoxian who came up with this plan, but Zhou Tanhua. Her demeanor was obviously imitating Zhou Tanhua. Zhou Tanhua had a calm personality and liked to think. Hearing this, Zhou Shaoxian stomped her feet in anger, curled her lips, and looked to the side. Zhou Tanhua smiled helplessly and said, "Even someone as strong as a supreme being wants to collect the 3,000 origin laws. This shows that these laws can make him stronger. If it falls into your hands, won't you have the hope to fight against the supreme being? We can also have Autar Crimson Dust collect them." Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, "Then the question is, where do we collect them? Will those divine ranges just give it up?" When Zhou Tianhua heard this, he chuckled and said, "I can't think of anything. Isn't it up to you?" From how he saw it, with Zhou Xuanji's connections, there must be a way. Just supremacy Hongshan, pinnacle of wheel, Nanmutiani, and the others were more than capable of gathering the laws. All right, thank you for coming up with ideas. Don't worry, train well and protect the Emperor's Sword Divine range as soon as possible. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand, indicating that they could return. It was as good as not saying anything. Zhou Tianhua nodded and couldn't help but continue. "Father, you'd better not go out during this time." Zhou Xuanji smiled and asked, "Why? Are you afraid that your father will die outside?" Zhou Tianhua shook his head and hesitated to speak. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji gave a profound smile and said, "Your father won't die so easily. If he wanted to die, he would have died long ago." It seemed like this kid had a secret. Could it be related to the mutation of the exterminating divine eyes? Zhou Tianhua nodded, bowed, and left. Zhou Shaoxian followed closely behind. The siblings muttered as they walked. Naturally, they were talking about the unreasonableness of the plan just now. Watching them leave the cultivation palace, Zhou Xuanji took out the Lesser Supreme Sword and asked, "Did you see that just now?" Little Sovereign's soul flew out with a solemn expression. It's indeed related to the Sword Emperor. It's really strange. What does the Sword Emperor want to do? Zhou Xuanji was silent and fell in a deep thought. He couldn't figure it out, and neither could Little Sovereign. Immediately, Zhou Xuanji got up and left the Emperor's Sword Divine range with the Lesser Supreme Sword in his hand, flying towards the Soul Source Pool. He had gone to the Soul Source Pool before, leaving Pan Zhun to oversee it. After a while, he arrived in front of the Soul Origin Pool. Gray fog filled the air, and the surface of the pool was calm. There were many beams of soul light sparkling in the water. Little Sovereign sighed and said, "You can't absorb such a big treasure." Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes. Why did this derogatory remark sound like a rhyme? Zhou Xuanji immediately sat by the pool and began to absorb the Soul Source Pool. The Soul Source Pool was extremely huge. Although he had absorbed a lot of soul energy last time, it was far from reaching the point of integration. There were a lot of souls in the pool. He didn't consume these souls, but stored them in a separate absolute time realm in his body. The pool water was absorbed by him, and the souls were stored elsewhere. According to Little Sovereign, he had to absorb the entire Soul Source Pool into his body in order to master the power of the Soul Source Pool and overlook the entire Kunlun Origin Court. After a while, the All Lives pen suddenly flew out of the Soul Source Pool and fell into Zhou Xuanji's hand. He raised his eyebrows and said in amazement, "This treasure is still here." The All Lives pen was an ultimate treasure not inferior to the Soul Source Orb. It was said that it could control the life and death of all living beings. Zhou Xuanji raised his hand and grabbed the All Lives pen. He carefully looked at it to see if the All Lives pen could be its master. Not bad. With the All Lives pen and the Soul Source Orb, you'll be able to absorb the Soul Source Pool faster. Little Sovereign cried out in surprise. Little Sovereign cried out in surprise. His gaze fell on the Soul Source Pool as his expression turned strange. The Kunlun Origin Court was in chaos, but no one came to snatch the All Lives pen. It was really amazing. Zhou Xuanji began refining the All Lives pen. In the dim palace, Zhou Fa was lying on the ground. Black lightning wrapped around his body like an electric rope, making him unable to move. He opened his eyes with difficulty. The dim palace was quiet and very depressing. Damn it. How can I be humiliated like this? He gritted his teeth and tried to stand up, but he couldn't break free from the lightning rope. How many times do you want to try? You can't break free. A cold voice came from the darkness. This person was none other than Xiao Jinghong. He was wearing black clothes with golden threads. He had a cold expression on his face. 2 swords were hanging from his waist. His gaze fell on Zhou Fa with a hidden killing intent. Zhou Fa gritted his teeth and said, "What the hell do you want? Why don't you kill me?" Right now, his life was worse than death. He had to be tortured every day. He might as well die. Xiao Jinghong walked up to him, squatted down, looked down at him, and said with a sneer, "Your face is useful. But don't worry, you will die sooner or later." After speaking, he suddenly pulled out his sword and stabbed it into Zhou Fei's back. Zhou Fei's face twisted in pain. "Your face's self-healing ability is quite strong. I'm curious, what's your relationship with my revered teacher? More accurately, what's your relationship with my revered teacher's reverse body?" Xiao Jinghong said coldly. He looked at Zhou Fei disdainfully, as though he was looking at an ant. Zhou Fei said furiously, "I won't tell you, you piece of trash." Oh! Xiao Jinghong exerted force with his right hand. Sword Qi ravaged Zhou Fei's body. Zhou Fei was furious. Just when he was about to curse, Xiao Jinghong knocked him out with a palm. "Trash!" Xiao Jinghong smiled disdainfully and got up slowly. At this moment, a few more figures walked out from the darkness. They did not reveal themselves, only their silhouettes. "Master, why did you keep him? I'm so bored. Why don't we go to Kunlun Origin Court to play? I want to have my reverse body." "Boring. Their cultivation is weaker than ours, including our revered teacher's reverse body. The anti-Kunlun will be delayed after the Kunlun Origin Court. Just wait for the Darkness Sovereign to arrive." These figures chatted casually. They did not put Kunlun Origin Court in their eyes at all. Xiao Jinghong looked back at them and said faintly, "All right, let's not talk about this. Just wait here patiently. Don't anger revered teacher. Otherwise, you will die." As soon as he said this, the hall instantly fell silent. Chapter 825. At the edge of the soul source pool. Zhou Xuanji was still absorbing the water of the soul source pool. The all-lives brush was suspended above his head, rotating on its own. The brush looked ordinary, but it could shake the surrounding space, producing slight fluctuations. Little Sovereign had been quietly watching him from behind. "Very good. Your absolute infiltration immortal physique is absorbing the soul source pool faster and faster. As long as you completely absorb the soul source pool, your strength will skyrocket. At that time, you will have the power to protect yourself," Little Sovereign said with a satisfied smile. Little Sovereign smiled with satisfaction. His gaze fell on the all-lives brush as his eyes revealed a profound meaning. Zhou Xuanji replied, "Don't talk nonsense all the time." Little Sovereign was speechless. This kid is too arrogant. He suddenly thought of something and said with a playful smile, "Find a time to fuse the soul source orb with the all-lives brush. Maybe you can create an artifact that can injure the Sovereign." Legend has it that a long time ago, the primogenitor Sovereign who established the Kunlun Origin Court had an extremely powerful artifact. It was divided into two and became the all-lives brush and the soul source orb that stabilized the order of the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji's eyes lit up as he asked, "How do we fuse them?" Just as Little Sovereign was about to answer, a thunderous roar came from above. The billowing black clouds above the soul source pool violently surged as a great heavenly might enveloped the soul source pool. Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign looked up. The rolling thunderclouds turned into a pair of eyes. It was a pair of purple eyes. Billions of stars were shining in the eyes, like two universes. "Not good. Retreat." Little Sovereign cried out in alarm. Zhou Xuanji was puzzled, but he didn't dare to delay. He quickly flew out of the world where the soul source pool was located with the all-lives brush. He came to the Kunlun universe and looked up. The space above the Kunlun universe was constantly fluctuating. It was glowing with a colorful glow as if it would collapse at any time. Little Sovereign's soul body drilled into the blade as he communicated with Zhou Xuanji through voice transmission. This phenomenon must be an array left by the Sovereign. No wonder no one dares to take the all-lives brush. This is bad. Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. He had never seen the current Sovereign. After experiencing so many things, he always felt that the current Sovereign was just SOSO. Is this array powerful? He continued asking, His gaze locked onto the phenomenon above. He could vaguely see many divine statues, majestic and domineering. Little Sovereign replied in a dignified tone, "I'm not sure, but looking at this momentum, it's likely to be the sage manifestation Great Array." Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide in disbelief. He had once seen records of the divine manifestation array in the Evil Sky Divine Ranges library. It was said that it was an invincible array that could only be used by a supremacy. It could condense the will of a supremacy. It couldn't be opened unless the Kunlun origin court was destroyed. When he first learned that supreme darkness was coming, he had thought of this formation. However, supreme darkness wasn't here, so no one could use the virtuous formation. This is too vicious. To actually leave a virtuous manifestation Great Array in the soul source pool, this guy definitely predicted that there would be such a calamity and deliberately set up the array to wait for the enemy to sneak in. Little Sovereign sighed with emotion. He suddenly felt admiration for this sovereign. From the looks of it, this supreme being's departure wasn't impulsive, nor was he deceived. Rather, it was all planned out. At this moment, the phenomenon suddenly dispersed. It came and went quickly. Zhou Xuanji frowned tightly, but his gaze never shifted. He was very interested in the current supreme martial artist. He had a premonition that nothing had happened to Sovereign. Perhaps she was spying on everything that was happening in the Kunlun origin court. It's gone. It seems that this formation was used to deal with the Sword Emperor and Supreme Darkness. TSK. That origin court war god turned out to be a pawn. Little Sovereign said with a mocking smile. Little Sovereign joked. After seeing the sage manifestation Great Array, the pressure on him suddenly disappeared. He continued speaking with a smile. "Brat, you can cultivate in peace from now on. This situation is interesting. Even I can't see through it." Zhou Xuanji was surprised and asked, "Could it be that the Sword Emperor can't feel the virtuous manifestation Great Array?" The momentum just now wasn't small. Once the Sword Emperor felt it, would he still enter the formation? This is the power of the virtuous manifestation Great Array. As long as the person who enters the formation can see it, you won't pose a threat to the Kunlun origin court. Even if you have the origin court's luck, the virtuous manifestation Great Array will no longer target you. Little Sovereign explained. Little Sovereign explained with a fanatical look on his face. "In the past, I also used the virtuous manifestation Great Array. It was extremely powerful. It was fascinating. It was a powerful force that even sovereigns would find difficult to achieve." Listening to Little Sovereign's words, Zhou Xuanji became even more curious about the virtuous manifestation Great Array. This was the first time he had heard Little Sovereign speak in such a tone. "Can I still go back to the soul source pool now?" Zhou Xuanji asked. The virtuous manifestation Great Array still gave him a lingering fear. He didn't dare to rush in rashly. Little Sovereign replied, "First, fuse the All Lives brush with the soul source orb. Then you can rush in." Zhou Xuanji nodded and rushed towards the Emperor's Sword Divine range. After a year, Zhou Xuanji finally made the All Lives brush recognize him as its master. Next, it was time for the All Lives brush to fuse with the Soul Source Orb. During this time, hundreds of divine ranges had been destroyed. The Kunlun origin court was in a state of panic. Sovereign divine ranges and super divine ranges were holed up. They didn't dare to make a move. The current Kunlun origin court was a slaughterhouse for the Sword Emperor. Everyone was waiting for death. Despair was spreading. Most divine ranges were already in chaos. Zhou Xuanji took out the Lesser Supreme Sword again and asked Little Sovereign, "Use your Soul Source Orb to absorb the All Lives brush. Then, use your divine energy to fuse them. This process will still take a long time," Little Sovereign said with a smile. Little Sovereign said with a smile, his tone full of expectations. Zhou Xuanji nodded. His glabella split open as the Soul Source Orb emerged. He then directly absorbed the All Lives brush into it. He first crushed God King Heisher inside the Soul Source Orb before squeezing the internal space of the Soul Source Orb and pressing it against the All-Lives brush. A powerful repulsive force erupted from the All-Lives brush, resisting the spatial compression of the Soul Source orb. Zhou Xuanji was seriously fusing the two treasures. But what he didn't know was that a figure had appeared outside the palace. This person was Zhou Tanhua. Zhou Tanhua's eyes were bursting with purple light. Purple runes could be seen on the edge of his eyes. He looked very strange. He looked at the palace gate and opened his mouth, silently saying something. The stone surface of the gate cracked open as words appeared one after another. All lives fusion. Court toppling. Unique sword emperor. Unparalleled in both worlds. Zhou Tanhua took a step forward. But just as he took 2 steps, he suddenly disappeared. After 3 breaths, Zhou Shaoxian landed in front of the gate and shouted, "Father, I have something to tell you. It's urgent." Boom! The gate of the cultivation palace suddenly opened, and Zhou Shaoxian immediately rushed in. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and looked at Zhou Shaoxian, who was rushing over. He asked, "What's wrong?" Zhou Shaoxian anxiously replied, "Tanhua is gone. He even injured Ren Niming before he disappeared." Zhou Xuanji's expression changed upon hearing this. He immediately disappeared from the spot. Outside the Emperor's Sword Divine range, in the Kunlun universe, Zhou Tanhua was moving forward at an extremely fast speed. His expression was cold, and the purple light in his eyes had never disappeared. Zhou Xuanji suddenly appeared in front of him, raising his hand and placing it on his shoulder. Bang! The 2 fists collided. Zhou Tanhua's right fist moved up from the bottom towards Zhou Xuanji's abdomen, but it was blocked by Zhou Xuanji's fist. Chapter 826. This kid's strength. Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes as he exerted force with his right arm, pushing Zhou Tanhua back. At this moment, Zhou Tanhua seemed to be possessed. Facing his father, his expression didn't change at all. He raised his hands as 2 light swords appeared in his hands. He stabilized his figure and immediately charged at Zhou Xuanji. He sped through the air as halos of light appeared under his feet, making him look like he was walking on flat ground. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before Zhou Xuanji, brandishing the 2 light swords in his hands as he launched an attack. Zhou Xuanji easily blocked all his attacks with the Lesser Supreme sword in hand. "What's wrong with him?" Zhou Xuanji asked in his heart, his brow furrowing. His eyes were locked on Zhou Tanhua's eyes. "I don't know. Maybe the Sword Emperor's eyes are controlling him." "Be careful," Little Sovereign replied solemnly. Zhou Xuanji had no choice but to find a way to subdue Zhou Tanhua. As their eyes met, Little Sovereign immediately cast the Extreme Nightmare Abyss, creating a dream to hypnotize Zhou Tanhua. Boom! Zhou Xuanji felt his consciousness explode as his vision was filled with a bright light. There was a figure in front of him that he couldn't look at directly. "This kid is destined to become the strongest law. You don't deserve him. Let him go, or I will slaughter the Emperor's Sword Divine range." The Sword Emperor's voice came. His tone was filled with killing intent. Zhou Xuanji immediately became angry when he heard this. He said in a deep voice, "You want to threaten me? Just you." The Sword Emperor couldn't kill him with his own hands. Naturally, he wouldn't be too afraid of the Sword Emperor. "Very well. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. You will regret it." The Sword Emperor coldly snorted. Zhou Xuanji immediately used his divine will to forcibly break the dazzling illusion around him. The Sword Emperor didn't dare to attack him. Therefore, he didn't dare to stop Zhou Xuanji's resistance. In the eyes of the Sword Emperor, Zhou Xuanji was just an ant that could be easily trampled to death. When Zhou Xuanji returned to reality, Zhou Tanhua was frantically attacking him. But no matter how he swung his sword, he couldn't hurt Zhou Xuanji. The invading saint body could not only ignore the law, but it also had a very strong defense. How could Zhou Tanhua hurt Zhou Xuanji without borrowing the Sword Emperor's power? Zhou Xuanji took out the soft velvety sword and stabbed it. Zhou Tanhua instantly lost his strength and collapsed in his arms. The soft velvety sword's grade was very low, but with Zhou Xuanji's divine energy, the soft velvety sword's power underwent a qualitative change. He picked up Zhou Tanhua and flew towards the Emperor's Sword divine range. After returning to the divine range, he summoned his avatar Panjun, demon god Tianwu, demon god Nanming, demon god Jihuang, and demon ancestor to jointly suppress Zhou Tanhua. He unleashed his divine powers, and countless sword shadows appeared in the surroundings of the Emperor's Sword divine range. The sword tips pointed outwards and densely packed together, surrounding the huge Emperor's Sword divine range. This scene caused all the nearby living beings to widen their eyes. What happened? Is that the Emperor's Sword divine range? Are they preparing for war? What a terrifying divine ability. It must be Zhou Xuanji. Could it be that someone wants to attack the Emperor's Sword divine range? Will the Emperor's Sword divine range attack the surrounding divine ranges? It's possible. The creatures fled in fear, not daring to stay any longer. The neighboring divine ranges were in an uproar as well. The various range masters unleashed their protective range formation in preparation for the Emperor's Sword divine range's attack. The Kunlun cosmos fell into silence. Zhou Xuanji's divine ability attracted all the disciples' attention. Jiang Shui, Chang Xian, Daoya Old Man, and the others found him. He didn't hide anything and told them the truth. Everyone turned pale with fright when they learned that Zhou Xuanji was going to destroy the Emperor's Sword divine range. The talent and fortune of the Emperor's Sword divine range was almost the same as the main body. And the other party was Zhou Xuanji, who had reached the highest stage of growth, the Sovereign. Could the Emperor's Sword divine range resist the attack of the Sovereign? Is he crazy? Why does he want to attack his own son? Zhou Xiaoshuan's eyes widened in anger. But as soon as she spoke, she felt that something was wrong. Jiang Shui glared at her. Chang Xian worriedly said, "Your Emperor's Sword divine range can attack you, but he can destroy the Emperor's Sword divine range. How can you guard against such a situation? He's the Sovereign. He's definitely not alone. He might have brought many experts from the anti-Kunlun." As soon as she said this, everyone panicked even more. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but furrow his brow. He just realized that he had overlooked this problem. The Sword Emperor was the Sovereign. How could the Sovereign not have powerful subordinates? Everyone fell into silence. Should we call back all the disciples of the Emperor's Sword Court? Xian Daoya asked. He also looked nervous. Who could remain calm in the face of the strongest in the Origin Court? Zhou Xuanji pondered and said, "Forget it. Let them continue to train outside. Maybe this will save them from trouble. The Sword Emperor is the Sovereign. After all, you don't go to deal with those disciples outside just to deal with me. Their cultivation is not high." Everyone nodded, feeling that it made sense. Zhou Xuanji, come out. A loud roar resounded throughout the Emperor's Sword divine range. Everyone, including Zhou Xuanji, was so shocked that they immediately sent out their divine senses. There were 7 figures outside the divine range. They were Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Songjian, Lin Changge, Ning Zifeng, Chen Bantian, Meng Tianlang, and Bei Xiao Wangjian. Each of them had a powerful aura and had reached the Origin Fusion Divine Lord Realm. They were all Emperor's Sword Emperors from the anti-Kunlun. They are so strong. Huang Lianxin's snow-white forehead was overflowing with cold sweat. These guys, whose cultivation was similar to hers, had actually grown to this level. Zhou Xuanji left after leaving a sentence. "You guys wait, don't come out." He came to the Kunlun universe with a single step. The Yu Shang Chong broken sword and previous life dream realization sword appeared in his hands. 7 pairs of eyes fell on him. Some were mocking, some were complicated, some were mocking, and some were filled with murderous intent. "Zhou Xuanji, you dare to stop my revered teacher's plan. You must die," Xiao Jinghong said with a sinister smile as he raised his sword. Xiao Jinghong raised his sword and grinned evilly. His personality was completely different from the calm Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji said expressionlessly, "Cut the crap. If you want to fight, let's fight. Didn't I teach you before?" Xiao Jinghong heard him. and his face turned livid. TSK, TSK. Just like Master, your mouth is so sharp. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. Not bad. Kill him. Origin Fusion Divine Lord is Air Ming. I reckon that he has the power of 7 Ming. We can't let him continue to grow. Be careful of his swords. Not just his swords, but his eyes too. The other 6 spoke one after another. Each of them drew their swords and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the Great Li Divine Suppressor technique. Countless Great Li avatars flew out from his body and charged toward Xiao Jinghong and the others. Boom, boom, boom. A great battle broke out. The Great Li avatars were slain one after another. Xiao Jinghong and the others charged toward Zhou Xuanji with extreme speed like phantoms. Zhou Xuanji's swords were equally fast and blocked each of their attacks. His eyes beamed with a purple radiance as he used the suppressing the universe and froze the entire universe. The 7 slowed down. With a thought, Zhou Xuanji's purple sword qi burst out from his body and turned into a vast ocean that covered a radius of billions of miles. Delusion, Sword C. Be careful, Chen Bantian said in a deep voice. Next, he turned into a gigantic yellow dragon that rampaged in the Sea of Swords. Chapter 827. It's really exactly the same. Zhou Xuanji snorted coldly. Facing his beloved disciples and sword slaves, he showed no mercy. He activated the sword fusion technique, and his aura skyrocketed. His hands danced like the wind. Sword chi swept across the surroundings with unstoppable momentum. The delusional sword C surged. Even though Xiao Jinghong and the others dodged, the sword chi was still absorbed by the delusional sword C and came back at them. It was like reincarnation. Master's reverse body indeed, Ning Zifeng said, gritting his teeth. His eyes were burning with rage. He held his sword with both hands and chanted a spell that Zhou Xuanji couldn't understand. Bolts of lightning wrapped around his body like sword chi, silver and sharp. His robe fluttered nonstop, and his pupils turned silver blue. Numerous blue swords of light appear behind him, opening like a fan and stacking into a full circle. He swung his sword with the tip pointing at Zhou Xuanji. The blue swords of light behind him shot out simultaneously. These blue swords of light quickly turned into a blue statue of a god. It was tens of thousands of meters tall. It raised the giant sword in its hand and slashed at Zhou Xuanji. The delusional sword C was pushed away by the blue statue. Its giant sword was about to land on Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji didn't panic in the face of danger. He looked up and opened his eyes. 2 exterminating divine light swept out and instantly covered the blue statue, immobilizing it. Ning Zifeng's expression changed slightly as he mumbled to himself, "Such powerful divine power. Origin Fusion Divine Lord Air Ming already had such powerful divine power. What would happen if he reached the peak of Origin Fusion Divine Lord?" Lin Chang'e and Zhao Songjian rushed to Zhou Xuanji's front and back and besieged him. Their swords were the fastest among the 7. They had almost surpassed the definition of speed. The 2 swords in their hands turned into billions of swords and attacked Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji activated the inverse chaos divine ability and turned their attacks around. They were horrified. They couldn't understand what was happening. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji's image in their hearts rose rapidly. He became extremely mysterious. Zhou Xuanji's eyes focused. The soul source orb suddenly opened between his brows, sucking Lin Chang'e and Zhao Songjian into it. You, Northern Valiant Sword, was enraged. He turned into countless afterimages and attacked. Every afterimage turned into a flaming sword with great momentum, creating many gaps in the delusional thought sea of swords. The scene was spectacular. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes. The delusional sword sea exploded, bombarding the entire universe. Boom, boom, boom. The surrounding divine veins were protected by vein-protecting formations and only shook slightly. Intense light filled the Kunlun universe, making countless living beings nervous. The experts of the various divine ranges were all watching. So powerful. Where did those guys come from? Zhou Xuanji is still more powerful. There is actually someone in the Kunlun Origin Court who has such attainments in the Sword Dao. Who said magic treasures are mere worldly possessions? Look at this vast sword chi. It's a complete fusion of man and sword. Who is targeting Zhou Xuanji? Will affect us? Everyone, be careful. Don't leave the divine range. While the various divine ranges were engaged in discussions, the members of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range were even more anxious. Jiang Shui clasped her hands before her chest and prayed for Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Shaoxian cheered loudly for Zhou Xuanji. Seeing Zhou Xuanji defeat the reverse bodies one after another, she was extremely excited. He's really amazing, Ren Niming muttered to himself with a complicated look in his eyes. Ever since he was subdued by Zhou Xuanji, he thought of establishing his own sect. But Zhou Xuanji's rise was too fast. It was so fast that he was reluctant to leave. By following Zhou Xuanji, he could enjoy all kinds of resources. If he were to rely on himself, only God knew if he could climb to such a level. Seeing how powerful Zhou Xuanji was now, he felt extremely complicated. As destiny, he suddenly felt that he was so insignificant. In the vast Kunlun Origin Court, what was the rule of destiny? Sheng Tiandao, barbarian god Huang Luo, Qiu Hu, Si Mingyan, Su Qing, and the old beggar felt the same way. However, they were already convinced by Zhou Xuanji. Other than feeling their own weakness, they were more excited. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji relied on the inverse chaos divine ability and various Sword Dao divine abilities to defeat Xiao Jinghong, Ning Zifeng, Chen Bantian, Beixiao Wangjian, and Meng Tianlang. He had already figured out the strength of these five. They were not a big threat to him. What he was most worried about was that the Sword Emperor had other more powerful subordinates. In the end, all five reverse bodies were sucked into the Soul Source Orb and suppressed. They no longer had the ability to overturn rivers and seas. Zhou Xuanji turned around and prepared to return to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. At this moment, applause came from behind him. He looked back and saw the Sword Emperor looking at him with a faint smile. The two stood facing each other. One had an evil smile on his face, while the other looked calm. This scene was captured by the divine will of many creatures. To Zhou Xuanji, is that Zhou Fa? No. Could he be the Sword Emperor? It's him. I saw him destroy the divine ranges with my own eyes. At that time, I thought it was Zhou Xuanji's doing. Oh my God, what's going on? Zhou Fa, Zhou Xuanji, the Sword Emperor. Could they be from the same race? You think they're triplets? Everyone was in an uproar. They were all shocked by the appearance of Zhou Xuanji and the Sword Emperor. The disciples of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range had a weird look on their faces. However, they were not too excited because of Zhou Fa. At this moment, they were all worried for Zhou Xuanji. The other party was the sovereign of Anti-Kunlun, a horrifying existence that had destroyed hundreds of divine ranges. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Aren't you angry?" The Sword Emperor mocked. "Why should I be angry? I have so many sword slaves. It's a good time to test your power." "Not bad. You're even more powerful than me at the same time. Your constitution is not simple. Could it be the legendary Exalted Invasion physique? You should have cultivated it in the space-time chaos. TSK, that girl is really loyal to you." He looked at Zhou Xuanji and felt more and more satisfied. It was as if he was looking at a mirror. There was no atmosphere of mortal enemies. With your power, do you still need to wait for the divine ranges to compromise? Zhou Xuanji asked the question that he had been wondering the most. The Sword Emperor shook his head and smiled. "I'm not the sovereign here." "That's right. It's because you're not the sovereign of Kunlun Origin Court that you have not reached the level of invincibility." Namatiani's voice came suddenly. Thousands of meters away, a hole was torn open in the void. Namatiani walked out from it, followed by the 12 ancestor. The 12 ancestors each held a chain in their hands. They were connected together as though they were tying an invisible object. Zhou Xuanji glanced over, and his pupils contracted immediately. Holy Ghost, the undying existence that would bring misfortune wherever he went. He suddenly laughed. Namatiani was really daring. The Sword Emperor could also see the Holy Ghost. He shook his head and said with a smile, "You want to defeat me with him? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even if the sovereign who created him came, your anti-Kunlun would still be destroyed." Swoosh! A sword light rose from the top of his head and turned into a gigantic sword that was millions of meters tall. It was shining with a blinding light. Chapter 828. Seeing that the Sword Emperor was still arrogant and disdainful of the Holy Ghost, Namu Tianyi said coldly, "Sword Emperor, since you're not afraid, then give it a try." He waved his right hand, and the chains in the 12 ancestors' hands broke instantly. The ferocious and formless Holy Ghost roared and charged toward the Sword Emperor. The gigantic sword of light above the Sword Emperor's head spun at high speed. A violent gale blew, shaking the universe and preventing the Holy Ghost from getting close. Zhou Xuanji's expression changed slightly. He immediately moved away from the Sword Emperor. The nearby divine ranges were shaken by the violent gale. The divine range protection array trembled violently as though it would break at any moment. Namu Tianyi channeled his divine energy to resist the wind pressure. The 12 ancestors did the same. Looking at the dazzling gigantic sword of light, they were extremely nervous. This guy is too powerful. Are we really going to fight him? For the Origin Court, why can't the Holy Ghost get close? Isn't it invisible and unaffected by divine energy? This guy did not obtain the sovereign's power from the Kunlun Origin Court. How can he be so powerful? His sword's Tao is extraordinary. We must be careful. The 12 ancestors communicated telepathically. They were afraid that the Sword Emperor would kill them. If they were not afraid of death, the Kunlun Origin Court would not have ended up like this. The divine ranges were killing each other. The violent gale did not stop. Instead, it grew stronger. The Sword Emperor, facing the gigantic sword of light, laughed condescendingly. "Are you afraid?" Before Namu Tianyi and the others could reply, the sword of light above his head exploded. In an instant, Zhou Xuanji's vision blurred, and he fainted. Everything turned pale. Nothingness, absolute darkness. Zhou Xuanji felt a gust of hot wind in his days. He slowly regained consciousness. Memories flooded into his mind like a tide. He opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was a gigantic dragon head. Its body was like the surface of a volcano. Its eyes were crimson, and smoke was coming out of its nostrils. The smoke landed on his body and fluttered his robe. It was a dark void. Zhou Xuanji was tied to a stone pillar. The pillar's surface was boiling hot, and the surrounding space was rippling visibly. The bottom of the pillar was boundless, and the dragon's body was submerged. Zhou Xuanji looked to the side and saw Namu Tianyi and the 12 ancestors. They were also tied to the pillar. They had already woken up. Their heads were lowered, and their faces were gloomy. "What's going on?" Zhou Xuanji tightly frowned. Why had the Sword Emperor not killed them? Although the Sword Emperor couldn't kill him personally, he could find someone else to kill him. What was that fellow thinking? He couldn't figure it out. His mind was a mess. He took a deep breath and asked, "What on earth happened? What is the situation in the Kunlun Origin Court?" No one answered him. Everyone was silent. The atmosphere was silent. After a while, Zhou Xuanji could not help but curse. "Are you all Astor's king dead?" These people were the pillars of the Kunlun Origin Court, but now they were all dejected like walking corpses. How could he not be angry? "Sai, let's give up. Our divine power has already been absorbed by the Sword Emperor. There's no hope for us to escape." Namu Tianyi sighed. He seemed to be in a trance, and no longer had the elegance of the past. The 12 ancestors kept their mouths shut as if they were dead. Zhou Xuanji frowned and asked, "Then what do you know?" Namu Tianyi glanced at him with hollow eyes and said faintly, "We have already lost. Don't ask anymore." I don't know either. And I can't do anything now. Just like Zhou Xuanji, they woke up in this place. They were once as furious as Zhou Xuanji, but the disappearance of their divine power pushed them into the abyss of despair. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He realized that his origin fusion divine power was still there. Why did the Sword Emperor leave him alone with cultivation? Just because he was the Sword Emperor's reincarnation? Something's wrong. There must be other reasons. Nam Matiani stopped talking, and Zhou Xuanji began to think of a solution. He must escape and return to the Emperor's Sword Divine range. What he was most worried about was the Sword Emperor destroying the Emperor's Sword Divine range. The silence lasted for 2 hours. Zhou Xuanji decided to act. He activated the inverse Chaos Divine ability to deflect the suppressive force from the chains and escaped. Nam Matiani and the 12 ancestors looked at him instinctively. Next, they were all stunned. They were dumbfounded and could not believe their eyes. How did you do it? An ancestor asked in a trembling voice. Their confidence had been destroyed by the Sword Emperor's power. How could Zhou Xuanji, who was weaker than them, break free from a seal? Nam Matiani's eyes widened as he asked in astonishment. Your divine power is still there? Zhou Xuanji nodded slightly. He took out the Lesser Supreme Sword and prepared to rescue them. These people were the top experts of the Kunlun Origin Court. One more meant one more force. Just when he was about to act, he felt a strong hand clasping his shoulder. He turned around instinctively and saw Ren Niming behind him, looking at him with a cold face. Zhou Xuanji wanted to break free, but he couldn't. This guy must be Ren Niming's reincarnation. Damn, the anti-Kunlun has already invaded the Kunlun Origin Court? Zhou Xuanji frowned, looking vigilant. Ren Niming said in a cold voice, Where do you think you were going? He swung his right hand. Zhou Xuanji felt the world spinning before he was thrown onto the stone pillar. The chains wrapped around his body again. When Zhou Xuanji came back to his senses, he was already sealed. He looked at Ren Niming and asked in a deep voice, What the hell do you want? Ren Niming calmly replied, Master wants 3,000 geniuses with 15-star aptitude and origin law. You meet this condition. You just wait. We won't take your lives for the time being. The dragon raised its head and spewed billowing dragon flames, burning the void. How is the Kunlun Origin Court now? Zhou Xuanji asked, staring at Ren Niming's eyes. Ren Niming coldly snorted and said, Of course it's fine. Master is the sovereign. He doesn't need to oppress the Origin Court. His figure flickered as he arrived on the dragon's head, sat down cross-legged, and began to meditate. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. He was in a very irritable mood right now. This feeling of being helpless was really uncomfortable. Don't worry, the Sword Emperor is not nearby. You still have a chance to escape. Little Sovereign's voice suddenly came into Zhou Xuanji's ears, making his furrowed brows relax. At this juncture, hearing Little Sovereign's voice made him feel at ease. After all, this guy was also a sovereign. The other party is also a manifestation of destiny, but he is much more advanced than the one under you. He should be the supreme destiny of the anti-Kunlun. He is extremely powerful. Compared to mortal sovereign, he isn't weak. Little Sovereign continued to speak. Little Sovereign continued to speak with a solemn tone. Zhou Xuanji asked in his heart, Then what should I do? Little Sovereign excitedly replied, Devour him. Devour? Zhou Xuanji was stunned. He couldn't understand what Little Sovereign meant. I already understand everything. The reason why that guy kept your cultivation is because he wants you to devour this supreme destiny. Little Sovereign's next words made him even more confused. Chapter 829. The Sword Emperor deliberately left the supreme fate to guard Zhou Xuanji just to let him devour it. This doesn't make sense. Zhou Xuanji frowned as he racked his brain to guess. It's very simple, because he wants to transcend everything. He doesn't want to be bound by the supreme fate. If you devour the supreme fate, you will become stronger. And if he kills you, there will be no conflict. This is killing 2 birds with 1 stone. To put it simply, as long as you devour the supreme fate, the Sword Emperor can kill you with his own hands. Little Sovereign transmitted his voice with a smile. He sounded very excited. Zhou Xuanji was still very puzzled. He asked in his heart, "He has many ways to kill me. Why does he have to beat around the bush like this?" Little Sovereign replied with a faint smile, "Don't you have an energy technique that can absorb other people's cultivation?" Zhou Xuanji immediately understood. It turns out that the Sword Emperor also knows it. If so, does the Sword Emperor have the supreme, legendary sword system? Wait a minute. Could it be that there is a miraculous effect by absorbing my reverse fate? Zhou Xuanji thought of many things in an instant. His brow furrowed deeper and deeper. This guy is too conceited. He thinks that he can eat you. You only have one chance now. Live or die. It's up to you. Little Sovereign sighed. He suddenly felt that Zhou Xuanji was a little unlucky. This was the first person in history who was suppressed by his own reverse fate technique. Zhou Xuanji's eyes flickered as his gaze fell on Ren Niming. Ren Niming is very strong. How can I devour his cultivation? At this moment, Zhou Xuanji suddenly saw a figure flying over. It was a holy ghost. It quietly approached the giant dragon sneakily with a horrifying and hideous smile on its face. Why is it here? Zhou Xuanji thought in surprise. Could it be that the Sword Emperor didn't capture the Holy Ghost? No, the Sword Emperor deliberately released the Holy Ghost to help him devour Ren Niming. Thinking of this, he looked at Ren Niming with pity in his eyes. This is the result of following the wrong person. Zhou Xuanji once again used the inverse chaos divine ability to break free from the shackles of the iron chains. He then used the sword fusion technique to fuse all the legendary swords into his body. Holding the lesser supreme sword, he walked toward Ren Niming step by step. On the dragon's head, Ren Niming opened his eyes and asked with a frown, "What kind of divine ability do you have? Why can't I seal you?" He raised his hand and waved it behind him, easily repelling the Holy Ghost. He stood up as well, and a blood moon appeared above his head. It was like a crescent blade, emitting an extremely oppressive aura in the dark void. He looked at Zhou Xuanji disdainfully and said, "If you insist on suffering, then don't blame me." Zhou Xuanji suddenly appeared in front of him and slashed with his sword. With a flash of sword light, the blood moon suddenly descended and blocked his blade. Separated by the blood moon, Ren Niming's expression was still so cold. A clone of Zhou Xuanji suddenly appeared behind him. The two of them attacked at the same time, using their palms as sharp blades. Zhou Xuanji focused his eyes and used suppressing the universe to freeze the void. However, Ren Niming's palm did not slow down. He could only use the inverse chaos divine art to reverse the direction of Ren Niming and his avatar. Ren Niming felt that Zhou Xuanji had disappeared into thin air and was greatly shocked. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something tearing through the air behind him, and he immediately dodged. Zhou Xuanji's sword missed. The inverse chaos divine art is really omnipotent. Nan Mutiani sighed in amazement as he watched Zhou Xuanji and Ren Niming fight. The 12 ancestors also saw hope. They were all praying for Zhou Xuanji. As long as Zhou Xuanji could defeat his opponent, they would have a chance to escape. Fighting with all their might was better than living a life worse than death. Zhou Xuanji's divine energy was not as good as Ren Niming's. But with the inverse chaos divine art, he could contend with Ren Niming. After a few exchanges, Ren Niming became more and more furious. He could no longer maintain his cold expression. He felt that he was being played. "Very good. Do you really think you can defeat me with such a small divine ability?" Ren Niming said coldly. Suddenly, his body exploded into black and white chi that spread out. Zhou Xuanji was quickly engulfed by the black and white chi. He did not panic, but activated the Great Li Avatar. Hundreds of thousands of Great Li Avatars flew out and scattered the black and white mist. Bong! Ren Niming's knee hit Zhou Xuanji's chest and sent him flying. In an instant, Zhou Xuanji felt a burning pain in his chest. Two strange and domineering forces drilled into his body, destroying his bones and muscles. Fortunately, his extermination saint physique was powerful enough. After activating the world internalization, he instantly suppressed these two forces and fused them into his own divine energy. Rin Niming raised his brow. His expression changed drastically. How could it be? His power of destiny had been absorbed. A chill ran down his spine, and he suddenly thought of the Sword Emperor. That's right. He is the Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor is him. Ren Niming did not dare to be careless anymore. He drew out a spear from his left sleeve and charged toward Zhou Xuanji with one hand. The spear's radiance arrived first. The tip of the spear pointed, and millions of stars flew out. The stars grew larger and crashed toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji swung his sword and activated the ultimate chaos Dao. His sword Qi wreaked havoc and shattered the stars one after another. A violent gale blew at Nanmu Tianyi and the 12 ancestors, forcing them to lower their heads. The giant dragon did not join the battle, but looked at Rin Niming and Zhou Xuanji with squinted eyes. Zhou Xuanji got close to the dragon and attacked with all his might. He was prepared to launch a barrage of attacks. At the same time, in the higher darkness, there was a sphere of light. The Sword Emperor was in it. He sat on a throne made of many swords. His eyes reflected the battle between Zhou Xuanji and Rin Niming. The corner of his mouth rose as he murmured, "Destiny, it's time for you to put an end to those thoughts of yours. It's not a shame for you to die in my hands." He laughed mockingly, as if Rin Niming had already died tragically. Suddenly, a figure of light appeared beside him. He half knelt and said in a deep voice, "Sovereign, the seal of the anti-Kunlun sovereign of darkness is about to be broken." The Sword Emperor was not moved by this. He still smiled calmly and said, "Let's talk about it after it's broken." The figure of light nodded and continued. "In addition, I also found the whereabouts of the sovereign of anti-Kunlun. It turns out that he did not leave, but reincarnated in anti-Kunlun. His fate is closely related to your reincarnation. I haven't found out the reason yet." The Sword Emperor raised his brow and slightly frowned. "Connected to my reincarnation's fate?" Zhou Tanhua's face suddenly appeared in his eyes. "Could it be that brat?" "No. Although that brat's talent was outstanding, he was just a source law. How could he be the reincarnation of the sovereign?" The Sword Emperor fell into deep thought. "Sovereign, Zhou Xuanji cannot be left alive. It's better to get rid of him as soon as possible." The figure of light continued to persuade. His tone was thought-provoking. The Sword Emperor snorted and said, "I have my own conclusion. Next, you need to stabilize the passage between the two worlds. Prepare for the war between the two worlds at any time. In the future, it may be a game between the three sovereigns. It will be unprecedented. We must be prepared." "Yes," the figure of light replied. He waited for a few breaths. After confirming that the Sword Emperor had no further instructions, he left. The Sword Emperor sat on the sword throne. His eyes flickered as he murmured, "Will that dream come true? Humph! Even if it comes true, I will destroy it with my own hands." Chapter 830. Zhou Xuanji did not know that the Sword Emperor was looking at him. He was fully focused on fighting Rin Niming and thinking about how to defeat him. This Rin Niming was the supreme fate of the anti-Kunlun. His strength was unfathomable, and his divine power was inexhaustible. He was also proficient in many strange divine arts, which made him feel helpless. If not for the inverse chaos divine ability and the absolute infestation saint form, Zhou Xuanji would have lost without a doubt. His sword principle couldn't hurt Rin Niming at all. Rin Niming's heart was equally heavy, and he was even more nervous than Zhou Xuanji. His cultivation far surpassed Zhou Xuanji's, and he was supreme fate. Yet, he had been toyed with by Zhou Xuanji. How could he not be angry? This was the Kunlun origin court, and he couldn't use his fate power to its fullest, causing such an awkward scene. With a flash of sword light, Zhou Xuanji and countless greatly avatars moved around Rin Niming. Their attacks were swift and fierce, and Rin Niming was beaten senseless by the inverse chaos divine ability. Damn it! If this goes on, Ren Niming gritted his teeth. He could sense that Zhou Xuanji would absorb his divine energy with each attack. If this continued, he would definitely lose. Not only that, but Zhou Xuanji would also become more powerful and even surpass him. Thinking of this, Ren Niming became even more anxious. Zhou Xuanji had been looking for an opportunity. All the divine energy in the Tianxia map poured into the soul source orb. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Songden's divine energy was also sucked dry and condensed together, ready to erupt at any time. This divine power was ready to be unleashed. As long as he found the right opportunity, he would be able to kill Ren Niming with one strike. Very good. Let's wear him out like this. Little Sovereign's voice reached Zhou Xuanji's ears. He sounded extremely excited. Zhou Xuanji did not reply, but focused on the battle. During the battle, he had an inexplicable epiphany. His understanding of the destiny law. A very long time ago, he'd suffered a blow from destiny, and he'd almost died. Ren Niming's destiny law was far stronger than the heavenly law universe's destiny law. In such an intense battle, he could clearly feel the existence of the destiny law. The 12 ancestors of law began to discuss. They all saw hope. Zhou Xuanji has a chance to win. What exactly is his divine ability? This is the first time I've seen such a mystical divine ability. I have to be quick in case the Sword Emperor notices. I feel like he's already lurking around. I feel like I'm being watched. No, it's very difficult for Zhou Xuanji to win in a short time. It's already very impressive that he could fight to this extent. They watched the battle nervously while discussing it. Namatiani said nothing, his gaze never leaving the battlefield. The battle continued. The Holy Ghost sneaked over again and tried to sneak attack Ren Niming, but it was blocked by the power of fate. Misfortune was actually a branch of fate, so the Holy Ghost was nothing to Ren Niming. However, Ren Niming couldn't kill him. The Holy Ghost was forced back again and again, but it didn't compromise. Instead, it became even more furious. How annoying! Ren Niming's eyes were cold, and his heart was burning with anger. Why did the Holy Ghost come out? What was Ji Zun doing? You can't even handle a Holy Ghost? His pupils constricted as if he thought of something. His body trembled, and he hurriedly pulled away from Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji noticed the look in his eyes and immediately understood that he already knew the scheme behind all of this. At this moment, a ray of black light that was indistinguishable from his physical body and divine sense descended and quickly enveloped Ren Niming. Zhou Xuanji, who had the perfect exterminating divine eyes, saw everything clearly. In the eyes of Namatiani and the 12 ancestor, Ren Niming suddenly stopped for no reason. Zhou Xuanji wouldn't stop. Taking advantage of the victory, the soul source orb suddenly opened between his brows. Boom! A ray of purple light containing extremely horrifying origin fusion divine power burst out. It tore through the space and swept past Ren Niming instantly. The exterminating divine light, which had been accumulating for a long time, directly turned Ren Niming into ashes. At the same time, an unimaginably massive divine power poured into Zhou Xuanji's body. World internalization. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the Tianxia map and the soul source orb to help him absorb most of the divine power, lest he explode and die. Fortunately, he had the absolute infiltration saint physique. He could quickly convert the origin fusion divine power of others. Namatiani and the 12 ancestors' jaws dropped. What did they just see? Zhou Xuanji killed Ren Niming instantly. How is this possible? Zhou Xuanji didn't let his guard down, nor did he go to save Ren Niming. Instead, he remained motionless. He could feel the invisible pressure. The Sword Emperor was spying on him. He could attack at any time. What should I do next? Let him do whatever he wants? Zhou Xuanji asked in his heart. If it weren't for the Sword Emperor, it would have been very difficult for him to kill Ren Niming. Now that the Sword Emperor had made a move, it meant that the Sword Emperor was already next to him. He might even be staring at him, waiting for an opportunity. Get ready to escape. I will mobilize my soul power. Stay alert. Don't relax. Little Sovereign's voice resounded in his mind before he started counting down. 3, 2, 1. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Xuanji disappeared into thin air. Namatiani and the 12 ancestor were stunned. He left just like that? The Sword Emperor suddenly appeared where Zhou Xuanji had disappeared. Namatiani and the others immediately lowered their heads in fear. What's going on? Could it be that the sovereign soul is helping him? The Sword Emperor furrowed his brow. His face was gloomy. Anger flashed in his eyes. He was angry at himself for neglecting the sovereign soul. He swept his divine will, trying to track Zhou Xuanji. But he wasn't the sovereign of the Kunlun Origin Court. He couldn't see the Kunlun Origin Court and all the universes below it at a glance. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji blinked. He felt the world spinning. His body was squeezed by a terrifying force. It was extremely uncomfortable. After a long while, he finally landed on the ground. He propped his hands on the ground as he knelt on the slippery mud. He shook his head and looked up, trying to wake himself up. The pitter-patter of rain fell on his body and into the mud. The Lesser Supreme sword floated behind him. Little Sovereign then emerged and sighed. You finally escaped. Kid, next, you should absorb the divine power of the Supreme Destiny. Try to become stronger first. He was worried that Zhou Xuanji would go back for the Emperor's Sword Divine range. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath. He slowly straightened his upper body and looked around. This was a mountainous area shrouded in dark clouds. The forest was covered in a layer of mist. A few black wolves were lying on the ground under the trees in the distance, looking at him nervously. Other than them, there were no other creatures. He didn't look for a place to take shelter from the rain. Instead, he sat down and meditated. I can use this rain to wake myself up. He began to absorb Rin Niming's Origin Fusion Divine Power. It wasn't just divine power, but also the supreme destiny rule. It wasn't the credit of world internalization, but the soul source orb. Seizing the rule, his cultivation began to grow rapidly. He wanted to use this opportunity to break through to the Origin Fusion Divine, Lord Level 3. The Lesser Supreme sword floated behind him, protecting him. Suddenly, two figures flew over from the horizon. It was a man and a woman. They were flying on their swords toward Zhou Xuanji. Chapter 831. A man and a woman flew toward Zhou Xuanji. They were dressed in similar blue ancient clothing and looked like a celestial couple. The woman looked like a celestial being and was beautiful and graceful. The man had a dignified appearance, sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and a jade-like face. They chatted as they flew. Soon, the woman discovered Zhou Xuanji's silhouette and said in surprise, "There's someone ahead. He's cultivating in the rain?" The man heard him and looked over. His gaze locked on Zhou Xuanji. He frowned. Seeing Zhou Xuanji's back, he felt an indescribable sense of unease. This person was definitely not an ordinary person. "Junior sister, let's take a detour to avoid unnecessary trouble," the man said in a low voice. The woman nodded, having no objections. The pair immediately changed their direction and distanced themselves from Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji also noticed them passing by, but he did not open his eyes and focused on cultivating. He had used his divine will to scan this world. It was a great thousand world, and the continent was as vast as the Wanshin Great Thousand. There were countless races living here. Of course, in Zhou Xuanji's eyes, this world was incredibly small. The pair of brother and sister left and never came back. In the following period of time, no one came to disturb Zhou Xuanji. 2 months later, Zhou Xuanji began to break through. With the absolute invasion saint form, the rules of the tribulation did not dare to obstruct him, so he broke through very easily and did not cause too much of a commotion. 3 enlightened Origin Fusion Divine Lords. At this level, he could use the Reverse Divine Sword and the Non-Existence Divine Sword. First, he took out the Reverse Sword. The sword was silver gray in color, and the blade was a little thick, but it did not feel heavy when he held it. As for the Non-Existence Godly Sword, he naturally could not see it. It was almost non-existent, but Zhou Xuanji could sense its presence. These two omni-fusion divine swords contain power that surpassed all the previous divine swords. Huh, this sword is not simple. Also, there seems to be some kind of power around you. Little Supreme Being said in bewilderment as his soul body flew out of the Lesser Supreme Sword. At this time, the sky was clear and boundless. The Lesser Supreme Sword stood in the middle of the grass, shining with a strange light under the sunlight. Zhou Xuanji did not reply to him. He stored the two legendary swords and continued to absorb Ren Niming's astral fusion divine power. About 10 minutes passed. I finally found you. The Sword Emperor's voice suddenly sounded out, causing Zhou Xuanji to open his eyes in shock. He immediately got up and took out the reverse sword and non-existent sword, preparing to fight. The Sword Emperor stood midair and looked down at him with a smile that was not a smile. Zhou Xuanji gritted his teeth. He had never thought that the Sword Emperor would find him as soon as he broke through. Although his cultivation had multiplied, it was nothing compared to the Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor didn't make a move. Instead, he was sizing him up. As expected, you are absorbing the supreme destiny. Impressive. Don't worry, I won't kill you for now. Emperor Sword Divine Range is safe and sound. The Sword Emperor smiled. His smile was so cold that it made people shudder. What do you want to do? Zhou Xuanji asked in a low voice. Not only did he not heave a sigh of relief when the Sword Emperor didn't attack him, but he was also very unhappy. He hated this kind of helpless situation. I originally wanted to kill you, but now I need a helper to help me deal with the two sovereigns. Once you and I win, I will not endanger the Kunlun Origin Court. I just want to advance to a higher realm. At that time, let me devour 3,000 origin rules. I can leave a part of each of them. This way, I can ensure the normal development of the Kunlun Origin Court, the Sword Emperor said, staring at Zhou Xuanji. The Sword Emperor said as he looked at Zhou Xuanji, making Zhou Xuanji feel quite stunned. Join forces? Two sovereigns? Zhou Xuanji immediately thought of the long-lost sovereign of the Kunlun Origin Court. That guy is still alive. From what the Sword Emperor said, that sovereign will be back soon. The Sword Emperor landed in front of him and said, My subordinates found out that your sovereign is not dead. He has reincarnated, and he is related to your fate. This means that you know him, and it's not just a simple acquaintance. Zhou Xuanji was the same as the Sword Emperor. He immediately thought of Zhou Tianhua. He couldn't help but frown. He shouldn't be your son. His fate has just begun. There are no traces of his previous life, the Sword Emperor said, shaking his head with a smile. This dispelled Zhou Xuanji's worries. He asked, In that case, why did you take my son away? The Sword Emperor smiled and explained, He was very talented. He was the same in the Kunlun Origin Court where I was. But that kid died early. Back then, the evil Sky Divine Range was besieged. Origin Court War God was taken away. In order to save him, Beast Sovereign used me as a ransom. That kid Tianhua died in front of me to save me. This is also why I hate Origin Court War God so much. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow again. Why is this past the same as the future Zhou Fa saw? He asked doubtfully, Wasn't Beast Sovereign and Origin Court War God at odds with each other in your place? Origin Court War God was killed by Beast Sovereign himself. The Sword Emperor shook his head and explained with a smile, Origin Court War God betrayed the evil Sky Divine Range and Beast Sovereign. The two became enemies. It's that simple. Zhou Xuanji's pupils suddenly shrank. He suddenly fell into a trance. What is the relationship between the anti-Kunlun and the Kunlun Origin Court? If it's the opposite, why is the development trajectory so similar? Little Sovereign suddenly flew out. He crossed his arms over his chest, closed his eyes, and coldly snorted, Junior, what are you plotting? You can't talk about the matter between the two realms like this. It will cause chaos. The Sword Emperor glanced at him and said with a contemptuous smile, That's you. What I'm going to do is what you dare not to do. Hearing this, Little Sovereign opened his eyes and said in a deep voice, Don't tell me you want it. The Sword Emperor shook his head and turned his gaze back to Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. He was extremely curious. He asked, "What are you talking about?" Little Sovereign replied, "You will be qualified to know all this when you step into the Sovereign pursuing realm. If you know in advance, you will die a very ugly death." The Sword Emperor nodded with a smile. The atmosphere was no longer as tense as before. Zhou Xuanji looked at the Sword Emperor and asked, "What are your plans next?" The situation forced him to bow his head. Since the Sword Emperor didn't want to kill him, he had to seize the opportunity to survive and counterattack in the future. "You should go back and become stronger first. That sovereign will definitely come into contact with you in the future. At that time, if you find out his identity, give this sword to him or use this sword to hurt him." The Sword Emperor flipped his right hand, and a small green jade sword appeared in his hand. He then handed it to Zhou Xuanji. After taking it, Zhou Xuanji began to play with the sword. This small green jade sword didn't seem to be anything special. Zhou Xuanji swept it with his divine will and couldn't sense any energy from it. It was like a toy from the mortal world. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Aren't you afraid that I will play tricks on you?" The Sword Emperor smiled meaningfully and said, "You better pray that the sovereign dies. If he wins, you won't be able to become the sovereign for a long time. If I win, I can help you ascend to the sovereign's position." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.